everybody. Welcome back to the Pylon Show. This is episode number 95. And after over 2 years of the Pylon Show and 95 fucking episodes, Tasteless joins us. Welcome, Tasteless.
It's good to be here. I am the last unlockable character. You've now completed the collection of StarCraft people for the show.
Thank you for
getting up. Thank you for the photo they used of me. Maynard was saying before the show started that if this was a Pinder profile picture, if we met on a date, he'd be like, "What the fuck?"
Excellent. Well, thank you.
You're not a 23-year-old man.
I thought it was going for an early 20s man. You're at least 35.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love you guys. I miss you all so much. Except Tasteless. I still see you all the time.
Yeah, okay, you can't get rid of me, man.
We got Tasteless here. Maynard, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, dude. I've missed both you and Nate and Tasteless a lot, so it gives me great pleasure to be on the show today to talk about whatever. I forgot the topic, honestly. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter.
You
secured your invite last week when we said we were going to have Tasteless soon, and you said live on the air, you're like, "Can I be on that episode?" I'm like, "Yeah." I guess I have the power to grant this. Sure, Maynard.
I was talking to Tasteless since fucking, I don't even know, BlizzCon, I guess. Like, it's just been a long time. So.
It's been rough, man. I haven't, nobody can go anywhere or travel anywhere. I didn't really realize how much, I needed to get out and go abroad and stuff and see you guys and everything. So life's been kind of weird,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's been very weird for this man. Look at that beard. Oh my God, Nate, how you doing, man?
Ooh. Surviving. I successfully pulled off my move. I was telling you guys, so I'm out in Vegas now. I've got a much better place that's a lot more calm than Los Angeles is these days. So just been chilling, hunkering down, missing all you guys, missing doing events, missing everything, and happy to be hanging out with my buds.
Well, thank you guys for coming. A little roadmap of the show, guys. We'll go over the sponsors in just a moment, and then jump into this week in StarCraft, and then we'll get on to our main subject, which is just going to kind of be talking about casting as a career because, well, we're all professional casters. We've all done it for quite a long time at this point, and things have changed quite a bit. So I think it's an interesting topic, especially since we have Tasteless here, since he's been around the longest as a caster. From there, of course, we'll go into the Patreon questions. Speaking of Patreon, guys, do you want to support the Pylon Show? Check out patreon.com/the Pylon Show. Are you dying to be able to ask Tasteless a question, but you can't sit through his Protoss on his stream to do so? Go ahead and sign up, and you can drop a question into our Discord right now because we're going to be answering them all at the end of the show. So check it out. This is the greatest way. This is how we fund the Pylon Show. So please, try that out, and thank you to everyone for the support, and of course, the giant support we've had recently, which has gotten us that goal to get Tasteless on the show.
And if I can even chime in too, Patreons, it's really hard to grow them. So I know a lot of you guys are probably watching, and it might be like a headache to set up something on Patreon to support it, but it does go a long way, and shows like this do thrive off of it. So definitely support him.
Damn, look at that. He's good.
Yeah.
It's already paying himself right off. Damn. All right. Also, we have our Matcherino. Check it out. Matcherino.com/the Pylon Show. And of course, this is a great way to fund things within the community as well. You can literally just sign into the site. I know it's annoying. You have to sign in every time you go to the site. But guess what? If you let something like Google Chrome autofill for you, it's so easy to do every week. Go there, click on contribute, and type in iced tea, ICEDTEA, and you will literally just create money out of thin air. I don't know how Matcherino does it, but that will create money for the Pylon Show. And of course, if you want, you can do some things like our little side challenge for following G Fuel or buy cool shit like this Pylon Show mug. Look at that.
Nice.
I told Cobra to send me some of our Pylon Show swag, and he sent me 4 of this exact mug. So I am drinking out of it every single day at this point.
You've only got to do dishes once a month, Dan. That's amazing.
A fucking mound of dishes in my sink at all points. So,
Nice.
guys, check that out. Type in the code, help us out. And of course, check out the pylonshow.com. This is for all your Pylon Show needs. It has all of our links, our show notes, our forums. This is where you drop questions from the Patreon. It has all the VODs and everything like that. And of course, our link tree, linktr.ee/the Pylon Show, which is kind of like the website in one page format. Okay. All that being said, it's time for This Week in StarCraft. Let's hear about what's going on. Of course, we go through this pretty quickly. If you want to learn more about any of this, we have all the links and everything within the show notes. And anywhere that you find the Pylon Show and listen to it, you can get a link to these show notes. All right, let's start on page number 3, upcoming events. We are going to be talking about ESL DreamHack Masters, the GSL Season 2, the Wardy TV Spring Championship, and Stay at Home Story Cup number 2. All right, moving forward, of course, the DreamHack Masters Summer 2020 qualifiers are coming up. It's going to take place July 16th through 19th. We have a list of those qualifiers and when you can play in them. So definitely check this out, especially if it's the first time you're hearing of it. You're not being a very responsible pro gamer if you're hearing about it for the first time on the Pylon Show. The Global StarCraft League Season 2. The groups are announced. Tasteless, have you seen these groups yet?
Yes, they're looking good, man. We've got some new foreigners here as well, which is exciting to have. So everything's good.
And it's going to be exciting having Estrella playing it. I'm very excited about that.
He's been out here for a long time, and I've been he's just such a sweet kid. He's really smart. I play against him on my phone in chess sometimes. He always whoops my ass.
Oh, he's so good at chess.
He's so good at chess. It's shocking. So I'm really curious to see how he's going to do. Yeah.
And I got to say, like, people were telling me his name is Max Angel. It's actually Maxwell Angel, according to this. So I'm a little bit disappointed.
It sounds more badass to say Max Angel.
Yeah,
he's got a good name. He's got a good name.
His middle name is Power, which I confirmed with him in person. So it's Max Power Angel.
Damn.
Maxwell Power
Angel.
Angel.
Are amazing. And now he's a pro gamer.
Pro gamer / wizard detective.
He can't be stopped.
You guys, check this out. Tasteless and I will be casting this in 9 days.
Yep.
We also have the Wardy TV Team Spring Championship. Sue defeated Zest 3-1. Showtome defeated TY 3-1. We're down to the Showtome is so good. But we have Sue awaiting in the finals as he generally is. You can check that out over on Wardy TV. We also have the Stay at Home Story Cup number 2. A bunch of the qualifiers have already occurred. And in fact, this is being played this weekend. Roddy, I saw him tweet. He's actually driving over to Germany right now. It's going to be a great tournament. Definitely check that out. Roddy is going to stream it. Wardy, Take, O Gaming, Maddox, and Indy support the Stay at Home Story Cup. All right, this week in StarCraft, Team Kimchi versus Team Taco best of 9 show match. The loser agreed to a booty shake. This is something that Winter put together. I believe it was Cham, Jim Rising, and Special against Kawaiian, Parting, and Tasia, I believe, is what it was. Anyways, you guys can check that out. I'm sure Winter has it over on his channel. We also have ESL Cup Korea. Number 22, Zest beat Scarlet in the finals with Special and Time, making it to that top 4. Oh my God, it's starting to look like the NA, where it's like there's one person from the region in the top 4. Mm-hmm. Ouch. It looks like that was cast by Base Trade, Chicken Man, Wardy, and some others. Check it out. We also have ESL Cup EU, number 22. Hero Marine takes down his 10th or 11th ESL Cup. It's getting pretty insane at this point. Check that out. A lot of people casted that. We also have the NA Cup parting over Cham in the finals, 3-0. Mana and Skillis making that top 4. Very international cup. Moving on, we have the GSL finals, season 1. TY Bash Cure 4-0. Some of the games were pretty good, but TY is the champion, and you should have watched that. You watched that live, Maynard? I know you did.
Absolutely. No, of course I watched it live. TY is my boy. It's dinner time in Australia. It's so easy, of course. It was unfortunately one-sided. I really thought that Cure would put up more of a fight, unfortunately. And I think that there were some showings of him like getting really close. I really liked his. I think the crazy build. I think it was on Simulacrum, where he was going a little bit memey, and I think that's the best way to beat a player like TY. But anyway, history speaks for itself. The big 4-0 from my man Tae Yang, the greatest Terran alive.
That was an awesome final.
It
If you wanted to see, at least from like a Terran perspective, if you wanted to see a bunch of really different builds be executed really well, like a lot of people try to take strategies from them. Like, but you had 4 really interesting and largely different builds and ways to expand off of them in each of those games. Like, I've had a lot of fun playing TVT on the ladder since watching that final.
I bet you like that BC build, huh?
Oh
Every time TY does something weird with BCs, I think about you, Nathanius.
Me too,
Because
actually.
after you started that stupid BC versus Protoss bullshit, TY made a ladder account to only do that on and actually practice the hell out of it. And he got so much better with BCs.
He's a smart guy, TY is a very smart guy.
So what I'm trying to say here is he doesn't win the GSL finals without you, Nate.
There's no StarCraft 2
your
person
words, not mine.
that you can
Your
associate more with a unit than Nate in a battle cruiser.
I remember being on a
This
podcast.
is quite a feat.
The social team worked very hard to make that happen.
I remember being on a podcast, I think it was ZG, saying that, we're talking about play-by-play commentators, and now there's not that many of them. And I'm like, Nathanius is a play-by-play commentator, but when a BC gets made, he's Stephen fucking Hawking. He's got all, the maps and every single permutation of what every unit interaction with the battlecruiser can actually result in. Something to that effect, anyway. But, yeah.
Nate's analytical side. He's like, yeah, watch this now. It can jump across the map. Wow, Nate. There it goes.
See, there's only 6 corruptors, not 7. He could definitely kill the hatchery and get away with 7 health if he times it.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. Anyway, sorry.
So, guys, check out the GSL finals if you haven't seen it yet. All right, ESL Open Cup AU. We had Miomeka take down Demi in the finals 3-1. Yeah, you can check that out. It was on Cranky Ducklings, of course. Where else would it be? All right, we had Olima League. Number 193, Solar defeated DRG in the finals 3-0 with Time and Zest making that top 4. Maynard, you didn't cast it this week?
No, I did. I had a sore throat, unfortunately. Wardy picked up the slack, and I'm ever grateful for him to be that guy that esports can always lean on whenever one of us takes
esports the casting vacuum cleaner. He's like, wait, Maynard's sick. He just wakes up out of bed and takes it right over, no problem. All right, we'll check that out over on Wardy's stream this week. We also have OSC King of the Hill Weekly. Bly, Vanya, and Max Pax ran the hill this week, falling to Lilikanen in a turbulent week number 26. You can check this out over on Creighton's channel. We also have the Master Swan Open. The Kyojin took down Reality 3-2 in the finals, again on Cranky Ducklings. We have a battle for the Americas. Cham winning yet another one. This is becoming his tournament as much as anything. Star-Lord with his pizzas or whatever. I mean, it's crazy how many of these Cham has actually won at this point. Check it out over on the Cranky Ducklings stream. We also have Sentimiento Latino with Jim Rising taking down Dark Unnamed 3-1 in the finals. Paco Mike and Eggs in 3rd and 4th place, respectively. We also have Team Liquid Star League number 5. Sue ended up taking down Innovation 4-3 in the finals. Trap in 3rd place. You can, of course, check that out over on Team Liquid. They also release the replays, which is always really cool if you want to take a look at those and steal some builds. Yeah.
And love to Roddy and CG for having a sick finals cast as well. That was actually a really enjoyable show all up. Good final, good cast. Very good.
Pretty epic. Anytime you get to game 7, it's pretty sick.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with Sue, because that's like the kind of.
Oh, yeah. Well, it asks for it.
Yeah. It's got to be close. All right, we have Tornado Rebirth of StarCraft 2. Okay, so this is on the 14th of June in Chile. How can I read that? Well, my Spanish is getting pretty good from doing all these this week in StarCraft. Check that out. Yeah, 40,000 Chilean pesos on the line. 40,000. Do you know how much that is in USD, Tasteless?
So much. It's crazy. I mean,
swimming in pesos like a Scrooge McDuck ball.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's hard for the mind to truly grasp how big it is.
Guys, you can check that out. Cranky Ducklings will be streaming that in English. All right, we also have the 2020 NA Apprentice Season 3. Looks like coming down is Future, Pili Pili, Starkiller, and Vindicta. We also have some other players playing up to hit them. So you can check that out. It is on, I don't know, probably Cranky Ducklings. I don't see it right here. Yeah. Anyways, if you want to check that out, check it out in the show notes. We also have the 2020 NA Contender Season 3. And that the group stages have ended with Exiled, Wonder, F equals MA. Okay, that's a weird ID. And Y Skion on top. And of course, once again, Cranky Ducklings. We have the 2020 NA Apprentice Cup. Number 10, Jon Snow took down Silky 3-1 in the finals. Dolan and Intuition round out the top 4. Again on Cranky Ducklings. The Underdogs 2020 Season 2. Clem defeated Marine Lord 3-1 in the finals. You can check that out on O Gaming SC2 on Twitch. So I have the Gold Series Team Championship 2020 Spring. Dragon Phoenix Gaming, the best part of the Dragon, is in first place with 8-0, with Kaizi Gaming in second place currently. Wardy's channel will have your VODs. Kung Fu Cup 2020, cast by both Creighton and Wardy, has finished up. Innovation wins it 3-0 over Nice, with Time and Solar in the top 4. We also have the Four Corners Brawl. Cham, Kelger, and Art advanced from the round of 16. This was cast by Creighton, so you can check that out on his channel again. The Audai Weekly. We had Upley win once again, 3-1 over Quantel, with Dark, Impure, and Justice Simon rounding out that top 4. We have the Alpha X Junior Championship Season 7. That's going to begin on the 13th. Eric Fire, Baby Marine, who, by the way, is the younger brother of Rainer, Ghosty, and I Want to Be Beyond will all participate, along with an invited player and 3 from the open qualifiers. Of course, this is for players 15 years old and under who haven't yet reached 6,000 MMR. So really the up-and-comers in the scene. Check it out. The Alpha Pro Series, we have Solar vs. Innovation. Well, that already occurred. Innovation defeated Solar 5-3. And that was on their Africa channel. We also have the Alpha Pro Super Series. And that happened just a few days ago, where Innovation took down Dark 5-2.
God damn.
He's a killer. That guy won a lot of tournaments this week.
He's pretty good.
Innovation's right.
I've heard that. Well, all right. Good for Innovation. We also have the Alpha Pro Series Ultimate Showdown, June 9th through 12th. So it's already going on. Group A, Astray, Armani, Bomber, and Zest. Zest and Armani advanced over Bomber and Astray in that group. And then Group B, which is happening right around now, I think. Zound, Impact, Dream, and Hurricane. You can check that out. Kozan is commentating it over on twitch.tv/AlphaXSC2. All right, Team Kimchi versus Team Taco show match from Winter Gaming. Kawaii, Parting, and Tasia lost 4-1 to Special, Jim Rising, and Cham.
Ooh.
And on the 21st, they're having a rematch. So you can check that out over on Winter's channel. All right, the Shirshadi Open. We had Max Pax take it down 3-1 over Nina in the finals. You can check that out on Shirshadi's channel. We have the Cock of the Walk over on Chicken Man. He has Christianer 3-1 over Chan in the finals with Max Pax and Cass rounding out that top 4. We also have EDF SC2 tournament. It is a StarCraft 2 tournament, GSL style, and it started on June 3rd. It's on Dark Voice Live on Twitch TV. And the 17th will be the next air date. We also have the Pizza Pie Biweekly Season 3. The next tournament is coming up June 15th. That's just 4 days away. Do you want to win a pizza? Go sign up. You can be the next Star Killer. All right, winner, I'll buy you effing dinner. All right, renaming it.
Look at these food tournaments now. This is like a meme.
This is the new thing, man. It's I don't know. Would you rather win $15 or dinner?
I'm gonna start the Nathaniel's chicken tender open.
Dinner.
The fuck are you gonna do with $15? You're gonna buy dinner with it anyway. Might as well just cut out the middleman.
And you make someone else do the ordering for you, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I don't like to talk to people on the phone, so that works perfect for me.
Yeah.
Guys, you can check this out. Some Drunk Canadian is running that, a big supporter of the community. Check it out on twitch.tv/Some Drunk Canadian. The Archangel Files. Archangel Gaming is proud to announce the Archangel Files. Each show will highlight one member of the StarCraft 2 professional scene monthly and consist of interviews and games with community members. Hosts will share trivia questions about our player. Answers will be in chat. Those with the fastest APM and knowledge of the player of the week will secure an opportunity to play against the pros. May the fastest fingers win. You can check that out. It looks like Creighton is hosting it. And Mana was number 2. That was a couple days ago if you want to check that out. All right, Platinum Heroes 2v2 Extravaganza. That is just something that's happening kind of all the time. It looks like they've raised the prize pool. The Platinum Heroes on Twitch, and of course they have a Discord channel. If you are in Platinum League or Diamond League, these are great places for you to go to improve. We also have the Miserable Cup. That is a great idea.
Damn.
The Miserable Cup.
The fucking whatever cup.
It's one you'll never forget, honestly.
That sounds amazing. You know what? Actually, this just gave me a great idea. I haven't read this yet. So maybe I'm just going to say exactly what this is. But what this just came to me, if I ran something called the Miserable Cup, what I would do is, first off, you host it on terrible maps. And after each match, you interview the loser. So whoever wins the tournament, literally you don't even have time. So you only interview the loser every time. And you ask them questions that make them fucking furious.
Yeah, you got to say stuff like, so like, when you got in that fight back there, you lost all your stuff, and then you just hand the mic over to him, you know?
So Dan, you noticed how the Arbiter recalled 15 Dragoons into your main base? Don't you think?
Do you think if you didn't lose all your drops back there, you would have won the game? You know?
Do you think if you EMP the Arbiter, it would have been fine, Dan? What are your thoughts on that?
You got to do even better than that. Why did you not EMP the Arbiter? And then you follow up with an explanation. EMP is a spell. And that'll get rid of their mana, and then they can't recall it.
This is a great idea.
Upgraded at the facility for the science vessel.
That's right. God.
Oh, it's amazing. Let's see what the Miserable Cup actually is. Oh God, I just clicked away. It has to reload. Hold on. Okay, there it is. The Miserable Cup is a tournament organized and funded by Michael Misery Slater. Okay,
now we know why it's called a
regular tournament. It doesn't seem like he's being mean to the players to make the content, so that's probably a better thing. You can check that out over on his Twitch. Okay. God, I lost my spot. Okay, here we go. All right, the Pig Show. Petit Drogo is on Pig Show number 15. This is on Pig's YouTube. Go check it out. He talks to these pro gamers and goes over all sorts of things. Drogo, a great player and memer. We also have the Pig Show. Terran Pro Kelliger explains a tournament win. ES Champ had the opportunity to interview the Terran Pro Kelliger, the champion of Copa America 2016. Well, that's 4 years ago. I'm not sure why that. If that's like what he did, it's like, yeah, 4 years ago he won a tournament. I'm like, oh shit, this is. We're gonna enter him in the Miserable Cup. Okay. So moving on, check that out on ES Champ. All right, La Espira podcast. It's like the Pylon show, but in Spanish. In this episode, Demon Swap, Horus, and Jim Rising talk about GSL, TSL5, War of the Communities, and the Chilean tournament, and much more. Check it out. We also have the Archives. It's a live stream / podcast that discusses cognitive science and sports psychology as it relates to StarCraft. This is going to be on Aorit's channel. He's done a lot of helpful content in the past, so check it out, twitch.tv/Aorit. All right, this week in Brood War. All right, the Brood War G's Weekly. It looks like Zealot was able to dethrone Scan and win this week. Congrats to Zealot, an ASL player. Plays on Sundays, organized by Russ Brain. Looks like Bandy and Bonneth made the top 4 there. Congrats to all. We also have At You, which is Shamtu's tournament. And DeWalt took this one down over TY2 in the finals. Congrats to him. Check it out over on Shamtu's Twitch. We also have the STPL. This is the team league that Kix put together on STPL TV on Twitch. It's Soul Gaming in the lead right now. Valhalla team defeated Eternal Friends 3-0, and Clan Revolution defeated Bull 3-1. All right, the Undermine podcast episode 43 is out with Dan Gant, the author of Purple Wave. Yeah, we did talk about that last week, I believe, but if you are interested in the bot scene for StarCraft 1, definitely check it out on makingcomputerdothings.com. This week in Awesome, Larva has some new videos out. Okay, so the first one, this has been out for a little bit, and I think that Jinjin actually put a translation of it on his YouTube channel, so you can check that out. Jinjin makes some great translations for the Brood War scene. But Larva played some StarCraft with a keyboard that's like bigger than a desk, and it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
It was funny watching a macro when he would take his hand off the mouse and just be like, boom, 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 boom. It was just like that, guys. Also, Larva just put out an ASMR video of him eating, and it is so funny. I watched part of it right before this. It is fucking hilarious. This man he's something else. You can check it out on his YouTube. And that's it for this week in StarCraft. My God.
Woo! That's pretty quick.
Yeah, no, that was comparatively quicker than normal. Okay, so that means we can start on our regular discussion topic, which is going to be this week talking about casting as a career. Now, everyone here is and has been a professional caster. Of course, Tasteless first started casting StarCraft back in 2005. Maynard, you started when did you start casting?
Oh, like 2011.
2011.
Something like that.
How about you, Nate? I heard that if I heard correctly, Artosis called in sick to a dream hack, and you got your big break. Is that how it went down?
Yeah, something like that. For the big one, I guess. Yeah, I started in 2012 was when I started doing it online, I guess, beforehand.
So yeah, I just wanted to kind of have a chit chat about what casting as a career like kind of is, because I feel like it's changed a hell of a lot over the past years since you guys started and we started up until now. So I mean, I guess the shortest career we have here is 8 years of broadcasting from Nate. So can you guys kind of tell us? Well, let's start with Tasteless because he kind of has the oldest career here. What was the beginning of casting, and how did that kind of start out for you?
You mean like the story of how I first casted?
Well, I mean, you can
or do you mean just
like,
the progression of my early career? Sorry.
Yeah, like what was when you were starting to cast as a career? What was that like? So we can kind of build it into what casting is like today.
So I think I started in a different way than a lot of people because it was just so early on. Basically, there's 3 types of ways you can cast. There's obviously online cups, like what a lot of the tournaments you just covered were, and then there's overseas events, or basically these weekend events where it's 2 or 3 days, where everybody flies in. The entire tournament is a marathon, and then the third one, which is, I mean, there's hardly any of them anymore, but like GSL, which is like someone like you and me. We have a residency out here. We stay in the country and we go to a studio maybe 2 times a week or more, just depending on where the tournament is. So I started out by just going to events, and I was doing that when I was in school. And that was kind of my, by the way, I love this graphic. That was by far the funniest cheerful that was sent in at GSL. So I was a college kid, and I mean, granted, these events didn't pay amazingly. If you're just living on a college campus, any money you can get is going to be good, right? And so most of my early career was trying to convince companies to fly me out and let me cover the event, and then I was basically just doing that until I got a job offer in Korea. So I started there. I find that the casting out here in Korea, like for GSL, has probably helped me improve the most as a caster. I have done online tournaments, not that many to be honest, but I've done some with you, Dan. I think those are very helpful, but I feel like it's such a completely different thing than being in a studio where there's a whole bunch of staff you're working with, or you're working with a director or producer.
Yeah, and I think sitting next to the person you're casting with really makes a gigantic difference rather than casting in person or casting online together.
It does seem like if you're going to be, because I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this want to be career casters. It seems like if you're going to make a solid living, unless you just have a stream that's really strong, and I guess that's something we're going to be talking about coming up here as well, right? Is streaming versus casting, because at this point in time, especially with COVID, everybody's streaming, right? But it does seem like you need some events to really make a living.
Yeah.
We could talk more about the direction that esports is going in later here.
Because
it does appear that casters overall and all games are making less money now. And that's even before events were canceled everywhere. But yeah, I mean, I think all these different ways of casting, I think some are better than others. I personally think if you're going to be a caster, the best one, which is probably the hardest to get, is the one that you and I are doing, where we're out here and we have a regular show, just because the work is so
Yeah, the regular work is
Yeah,
sick.
exactly.
Just gives you a whole nother level of stability. But yeah, you were kind of hitting upon exactly where I feel like this conversation should head towards. So we'll definitely revisit what you just said there in a moment. But
Yeah.
Nate and Maynard, like, what was when you kind of started casting as a career? What was it? Taste was talking about trying to convince companies until you got a gig in Korea. So definitely very different than what you guys went through. What was that like for you?
You can go first, Lee.
Oh, sure. I mean, it was actually just it was honestly just me already having a full-time job at the time. I wasn't like a someone that had no career that went into casting as like I'm going to put all my chips into this basket. Whereas you and Nick were very all in on StarCraft before StarCraft 2 was even released. Like you guys were already kind of doing stuff, for the in Korea for the game, right? Setting yourself up for StarCraft 2's release. I had no pre-planned strategy whatsoever, other than the fact that I was a already employed full-time electronic engineer that was just a fan of the game. So I actually saw these events as just like a trip, like a holiday.
Yeah.
And that's how I treated those events for a long time, honestly. Like for the first maybe 2 or 3 years, every time I'd go to them, I actually didn't even invoice for a few of them because I'm like, oh, I'm just happy to be there, which I learned was a massive mistake.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I obviously did I back invoiced and got paid for everything. I had a talk with a few people and just like, no, dude, don't be a fucking idiot. Invoice because it basically makes. I didn't even look at it like that because I was just I was a full-time normie. All right, I didn't even look at it like a job. I was just like, I had I think it was Frodan actually. Like I was telling him what was up, and he was just like, you invalidate the job for other people if you don't invoice because then the company will just be like, oh, we'll just get this guy for free. I'm like, oh, when you put it that way, I absolutely should do that. And as soon as I got home, I did that because I didn't want to. No, obviously didn't want to do that. Didn't want to piss anyone off. So, and I just looked at it like that until I realized that it could be a full-time career and that it was the only thing that I'd ever done that was a job I enjoyed. As much as my job had its moments, casting for me has always been a pleasure. Even at some of the rougher events, it's always been a pleasure, and I feel like a privilege. And so I have that sort of, even after all these years, that starry-eyed, sort of magical feeling every time I walk into a venue, to a stage to cast an event. It just feels really fantastic, and just the that rush that I used to get from being in a live band and all that sort of stuff. It's not like it's almost like chasing a high, like a natural high. That
Yeah.
like seriously, like the high I used to get from being in a band. I missed that. I missed being in a band, and you get it from being a live commentator. And I just enjoy diving into the craft and getting really, for lack of a better term, try hard with it. Like just breaking down what other casters do and trying to adopt some casterisms into my stuff while trying to also remain genuine, that sort of thing, and just and that's what my whole journey was just it went from a hobby that I saw as a fun sort of side time, like something I did as I spent all my annual leave to go to events, and that was like, oh, these are my holidays. I don't get to have Christmas this year because I went to Taipei or something like that. Because I was still full-time contracted. So I just saw it as a good time, and then once it became a job, I started to take it very seriously. And it's still something that even with all the problems going on right now, I'm still very all in on. Have a lot of positive high hopes for.
Awesome. How about you, Nate?
Yeah. I mean, man, that's two very good stories to follow up. Like I started with the online stuff. I kind of had a stream. I was going to MLGs. I had like somewhat of a base of people that were helping to actually send me to these events to try and compete. I met a lot of pro players through that. Nina Puck helped me a lot back in those days, especially with being able to like get in on practice sessions of a lot of like foreign pros like Illusion and Scarlet. And just through that, I was kind of able to more easily get in with the tournaments because I had some player recognition type stuff. But my guess my game plan was I didn't know that I was really going to get hired for any events, but I was just kind of looking for opportunity and doing whatever I could. I would ended up like I did that SPL thing because like I think they had like TB and Day 9 do like the first one or something, and then all of a sudden they didn't. And I was like, well, I don't know that I'm not gonna say that I'm better than these people, but if I all offer an alternative, like maybe people will be interested in doing that. And that was how I got into doing a bunch of the other online cups. And
Mm.
yeah, I mean, really it was just up until that dream hack came up where they asked me to do it. It was just I was doing like 3 or 4 tournament casts a day, just hoping to get to a point where I could have it be like maybe I only need to do 2 a day and be able to make decent-ish money right off of it. But yeah. Yeah, and it's just it was crazy, and I guess the biggest thing for me now, like, doing the events, though, is super different. You guys made a lot of really good points with regards to, like, that rush that you get going up on stage, and I felt that doing that first event and then probably, like, doing my first, BlizzCon as well. Like, there's always, like, that escalation
Mm.
as you kind of, like, make it, I guess, but
Yeah,
it's,
BlizzCon was a massive one
journey.
for me. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think the high that you get from hosting a major event, like it's for me, it's the best feeling in the world. Like the plane
Mm.
ride home, I just feel like I've really done something, especially if I'm happy with how the whole show went. And I feel like people had a good time and the game's really hype. I'm totally addicted to that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us have like 3 or 4 days on a plane ride home to just really process it. To like really take it all in.
So the kind of the way that I want to steer the conversation now that we kind of have the beginning background story is like, so here's kind of the story that I see in my head, and then we can just kind of riff and talk about it. But like, uh, eventually everyone kind of chose StarCraft 2 as the career. Was this fully a casting career, or was it supplemented in other ways? And then how has that changed over time? Because I feel like I've definitely noticed a trend amongst casters, and especially StarCraft casters, where there was a period where there was a bunch of people that were basically just casting, making money, and being able to live off of that. And then suddenly everyone kind of started streaming, and it feels like it shifted a little bit, the importance of everything and stuff like that. So was there like moments that like this became like, okay, let's do casting full time, or like was it a hybrid type thing going on?
Yeah, I mean, if we could start with me, when I first started doing this, I didn't really have like a lot of people that. I mean, there wasn't really any casters, so I wasn't really sure what I was doing. But what I had a hunch I could do was try to basically have a business model where I could get money from tournaments. And by the way, when you're only going to tournaments and you're not streaming and you don't have any kind of place you're staying where you cast it regularly, it's hard to have any kind of other job, right? You have to take all this time off of work, and so that it basically conflicts with anything you're trying to do that's regular, especially a place that's not going to understand why you need to drop everything and go to a video game tournament. That business model seemed to have worked for a while, and it seemed like it was a space that you could grow in and continue to improve. And it seems like with the turn that Blizzard has taken, and a lot of other esports companies, it's much more difficult. Like ESL as well, it's harder to just make a living off of events. A lot of times you're getting haggled down for less. And by the way, this is not a StarCraft thing. This is true across all games. So games like League of Legends or even Overwatch League, those casters are offered less money. So the ecosystem for commentators who are trying to purely survive off of events is becoming. I mean, it's still possible, but it doesn't seem like you'll even make the same as the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that was, now I planned on streaming anyways, even though COVID came out. And I think a lot of people were assuming I started only because of COVID. And I had been thinking about it for a long time. I already had bought some of the gear and I was kind of mentally getting ready to start streaming a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think streaming is proving to be more stable as a source of income than anything. I mean, unless your stream gets taken down, it does seem to be more reliable than relying off of a publisher.
Mm.
Or a tournament that organizes events. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but that's my take on it, and a lot of other casters I've talked to.
I mean, for me, I've had this conversation with other people, other commentators as well, where I feel like one thing that you are in control of, for the most part, is your stream. You're in control of your stream. You decide your hours. You put as much or as little effort into it as you want, and usually what you put into it is reflected in what you get out of it. Whereas the landscape of an esport is almost completely out of your control. It's up to the publisher. It's up to the production companies, your ESLs, your DreamHacks, whether or not they want to pick the game up. You just don't know. You have assumptions. You have your foot. You have a lot of people in the know. You have your foot in the door at a lot of those places if you've especially got a working relationship with them. But it could all realistically, it could all disappear one day. I don't think it's going to, but it could just disappear one day. So having something that you're in control of in an industry that is so turbulent is very important. So yes, I agree with you in that regard with Twitch streaming and how incredibly important it is to have a Twitch stream, just in case. Like even if none of us need it because we have like supplemental income from casting events, which is where most of my income comes from, is from casting events.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's another thing I think a lot of people don't know is an event is usually where you take the big share of your earnings for the year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then if you don't
because
get
of the
them,
scope of the event.
Yeah,
exactly. But that seems to be going down and down. I mean, one thing about Twitch, Twitch really is the best thing that's happened to gaming because the site can't succeed unless you're making money off of it. So they have every reason to try to make you profit and grow and be stable, and build something to last. Where it does seem like, with some companies, they're not necessarily invested in your future. They might need a win from you now. They don't necessarily need it the next year. I think something else we might want to talk about, we can probably park it and put it further down the show, but is the influence that shareholders have on a lot of major companies and their view of like, we need to make a profit now, or why are we doing this? And I think a lot of esports, and one of the reasons why I was willing to really start pouring myself into this early on is like, when I started casting, StarCraft Brood War had been out for like, I guess it came out in 1998, right? So it was 2005. So it had already been out for so long, right? It didn't look like it was a game that would be going away anytime soon. It was really popular then. And so I look at it as a long-term plan. And I think the companies that don't look at esports as a long-term plan or something that is still in its infancy are making a huge mistake. And I think especially with some of the decisions, and this is across multiple publishers as well, but it's all, we need to win right now, or we need to prove that this has made a profit right now. And I think that's also had a huge impact on a lot of the decision making from these companies.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Nate.
No, I was gonna say it's something that I love getting into that discussion because my biggest thing when people talk about like what the future of esports or this industry can be, my favorite thing to always mention is licensing, right? That's like the number one problem with everything is tournaments controlling stuff. Nobody owns the rights to soccer. Anybody can buy a ball and kick it around. You don't have to pay anybody fees. But with companies having like these lofty goals, but also this crazy pressure to do stuff very quickly, there's a lot of contradicting goals in this industry that like there's no real answers for.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you'll have a situation where a company will say, well, this is our game. We don't want anybody else running tournaments for it. We need a license or we need to do this. And then you'll say, okay. And then but at the same time, they don't want to spend any money on it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, well, which one is it going to be? It's
it can't have both.
Yeah, you can't say it's mine and then say, okay, well, how about we have this prize money? You go, I don't want to pay for that. Then it's like, well, what are we doing here? You're basically, you're just inhibiting any potential growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like if I can look at the history of StarCraft 2 from the beginning, right? So from a casting perspective, this is my take. You guys can let me know what you think about that. But like when StarCraft 2 basically started to get big, it was a bunch of companies competing with each other, trying to make a high quality product. And I felt like work at that time was really good. When it was like ESL and IEM want to run events, and then MLG wants to run events, and DreamHack wants to run events, and then on the side there's some Blizzard events like BlizzCon and things like that. That felt like in many ways, a very healthy era where you could get hired to do gigs and places were kind of like competing with each other. It felt like Counter-Strike looks right now, not right this second because the virus and everything, but like just having a lot of different events, they're kind of pushing each other forward and everything. And then what you guys talked about there happened, right? In 2012, the Blizzard was starting to do more events with the WCS that first year, although it didn't really cut into things. Then 2013, they kind of shut everything down and we're like, we're going to make this big vision, right? And at that point, things started to go downhill a little bit. But it feels like things started to recover. maybe around 2015, 2016 is actually the period where I felt like uh, being like a career caster of StarCraft was like a really good idea around there. I felt because at that point in time, and this is specific to StarCraft, like with Amy and Mike Morhaime so heavily involved in everything, it felt like an era where they had a big vision for the game, right? And they
In
were like, yes,
2016?
this is yeah, right around there.
Okay.
You could see it kind of things were expanding and things were looking better, I thought. And it felt like it was a good idea. It's like, yeah, there's people that want us to focus on this, on being good casters and working on that. But since then, like since about 2017, I felt like there's been a steady decline where people don't give a shit, or like in general, everything has changed. It became everything became like fueled, I feel like, by publisher dollars. So it became this really weird situation, um, where suddenly it's like, oh, do we still have that vision, or are we starting to cut things and like trying to make this into something smaller? Or are we trying like what are we trying to do with this? And then we get up to like the modern era where you were talking about this earlier, Nick, where it's like can you even be a full-time only caster? And I think the answer is like 99% no. It's like you have to supplement with everything at this point.
Yeah. Well, wait.
I could go on,
If, yeah, if I could jump in there, a couple things. So, like, first of all, when StarCraft 2 first came out, um, we got to remember this was really where the second esports boom happened. The first one was StarCraft 1 in Korea, which is kind of within the borders of South Korea. This was a fucking huge craze. And then the second one was when StarCraft 2 came out. And so all these companies were jumping in. And it was exciting, but it was also fucking crazy. There was so much StarCraft going on. There was a weekend where we did a GSL finals. I think there was another tournament in China and there was another tournament in Sweden. And it was like, okay, well, who's the best player? You know, none of this means anything. It causes market confusion for the viewer because they don't. Which one do you watch? And you know it. So I think there needed to be some more streamlining for sure. Counter Strike is, I believe, if I understand correctly, one of the only games that is profitable because of the viewership, but also, and if you guys want to listen to a podcast episode I did a while back with Moses for the Tasteless podcast, we talked about this. Apparently, everybody was burnt out. I kind of knew about this, but I didn't fully appreciate it until I talked to a Counter-Strike commentator. There is no off season, which is fucking insane. Like for the players, for the team organizers, the tournament or team managers, tournament organizers, everybody should have, you know, like 2 months off or something, right? This is normal. People need to go back, especially in something like esports where you're just constantly on the road. You need to, you know, eventually go back and take care of stuff at home. And I've talked to some Counter-Strike commentators who just are literally never at home because now there's so many events and they've spaced the events out in such a way. I don't know exactly. It seems like Valve is very hands off, but the events are not overlapping, but at the same time, they're never ending. And there's also no like world final. Each event behaves as if it's the world final. So it's like everything is the hypest stuff ever, but then you don't have any kind of conclusion to the year. So there's a lot of stuff wrong. And now that, you know, there's no esports events anywhere because of the pandemic, you're hearing all these stories of teams that were basically burning out, people that were getting depressed in this whole process because, you know, the pay was fairly good, but and I mean, Dan, you remember I kind of flipped out when we were in New York one time. We had been to like 4 different countries or something in 4 weeks, and I was just like, "Fuck, I don't." You know, I love my job. I love this job. I wouldn't want to do anything else in the world, but I need to like just be in my house.
Yeah.
You know, for 2 weeks. I need to rest. I'm so jet lagged.
Yeah,
it's so exhausting.
There were times I remember that like we'd be traveling so much, like a month we'd do 4 events like right in a row and just not even go home. And by the end of it, we were like biting each other's heads off because we were just fucking cranky and jet lagged.
I don't deal with jet lag. Well, I already have a lot of problems with just falling asleep and staying asleep. So like I'm totally strung out. And I mean I think there's a balance to be had here. And it does seem like I guess the negligence of Valve in this case of not having more oversight or not having something that's more streamlined that makes sense led to a lot of the people that were promoting their game or playing their game to basically, not have the best circumstances, to put it lightly. But I also agree with what you were saying earlier too, that things almost seem to get too rigid for a while with StarCraft. Just after that, where Blizzard tried to rein it in, and it seemed like it totally backfired. And this was during the rise of League, where it seemed like a lot of attention ended up going over there in that space that they had created.
The other thing, a positive. Sorry, Nate, you go.
Yeah.
I
was just gonna say, and I think that I agree with you, Nick, as well. And one of the things, like as somebody who I follow like American football a lot. Like the way that it is structured is damn near perfect because and I know some people in the chat are trying to make comparisons like actual jobs and stuff, but when you're on the road like that, when you when you don't actually get to go home and see your significant other or your family if you have any, right? Like that's a really exhausting thing to go through. And like big major professional sports leagues, like a lot of them, like they use that downtime to actually give the people that are interested in that other stuff to get excited about, right? And you'd say like, okay, well, we're gonna have our off season be like 4 to 6 months, whatever. But within the first 2 months, we're gonna have a draft, right? So all the collegiate players, people get excited about that. There's hype, there's discussion, who's going where, our team's gonna make trades of their future picks. Then there's like at least in football, like there's a free agency period right now where people are like, oh, who's going to move from this team to that team? And during this time, obviously the comparison we can make with like commentators, but the pros as well, right? That's their physical recovery time where they're not bashing against other people, right? That's their time to do their regular conditioning and kind of recover from that grind of the entire season, right? And it's a difficult problem to solve in esports as well because one of the other things that makes Counter-Strike so big is that they've always been really open with that licensing subject, right? There's always been like a million different types of Counter-Strike tournaments going on all the time. It's not like the Valve Championship series that literally just runs nonstop the entire year, right? Like there's pros and cons to that, but
it would seem like it'd be fairly easy for them to just step in and say, all right, in December, or for the next 3 monts, we have an off season. I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean,
it could help.
Totally right, though. Yeah.
No,
it seems like it would be a good thing.
Yeah, like people follow. I think like I don't follow those scenes as well, but I see people talk about. There's like roster moves and whatnot, even in OWL or LCS. Like, and people do follow that. People follow that a lot. Like when players are moving between teams or a big, someone gets cut that they didn't expect, right? So that there is room for all of that. StarCraft maybe not as much because it really is always on the individual, like in their performance on that day. But it's an interesting discussion, I think, because giving people a little bit of a break from it gets them, it whets their appetites for when it comes back.
Yeah, I think the off season is like a healthy addition into StarCraft.
Yeah, I agree.
But the thing is, the way that we went about getting this, because I look at Counter-Strike and it's like you can be a career caster in Counter-Strike. You can just cast, right, and make a living. Obviously, we have to kind of ignore the fact that coronavirus is going on right now. That's kind of like put such a big
all the Counter-Strike casters are in a terrible position now because they don't have
But that aside, right, it seems like you can just, if you're a good caster, that can be what you do, that can be what you focus on, and being high quality in your casting is going to help you to make your living and live your life. But then I look at StarCraft, right, and how it got boiled down by Blizzard. Everything turned into it went away from the kind of Counter-Strike model that we had before, where it's like everyone's on their own, competing with each other and things like that. It's like it matters much more about having a high quality broadcast and keeping that all together. And then when you look at how Blizzard kind of like funneled everything together, but now it's like, whoop, it's like, whoop, hands off. All right.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Like being like a full-time caster in StarCraft doesn't really seem like a smart career move, right? Like, is it?
If somebody asked me now, should I become a full-time caster? I'd say no.
Yeah.
Right. And I've been a full-time caster for a long time, but part of the problem as well is that and Blizzard's been guilty of this, but other companies too, is that they don't seem to appreciate the ecosystem that they're creating. I mean, this is a perfect example of this is Heroes of the Storm, right? They made a league. You have kids who are pushing back going to college, or not taking other job opportunities because they're going to be pro gamers in this league, in HGC. You have casters who are investing all their time into it, and then they just pulled the plug. It seemed like they weren't aware of the PR nightmare. And it's going to sound weird to say, but it's kind of like when you see these factories close down in the Midwest and the entire town goes to shit because everybody worked in that factory. And I think that something that is just not really appreciated with a lot of these companies is that you are creating a job industry, you're creating an ecosystem, and it's important to sustain that. And I think a lot of times content or casting, I think casters or even pro gamers can be taken for granted. Like, that's great, they're playing our game. This is somebody trying to make a living doing this, right? And you need to have growth and room to build and some kind of plan, big picture, to sustain that. And I think that's not there. And again, I don't think this is even a unique to StarCraft situation. I think this is across the board with all esports.
Yeah, no, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, though. Is I think I always go back to this big announcement that like Activision tried to make with Overwatch, and they're like, we want to be the #1 esports company, and like we have to ask stuff. What does that really mean, right? Does that mean that your tournaments are the best? Does that mean you have the most people who watch your tournaments? Does that mean you have the healthiest ecosystem to last and grow a long time? That you're going to start building brand recognition now? That 5-10 years from now you're going to be a household name, right? And then it goes right back to the shareholder problem, though, where at the same time, all of a sudden you're like, well, yeah, it's great that you guys want to become #1, but you can't literally become #1 in one quarter, in one financial quarter. You guys need to show us that you're making more money than you were last time, or we don't give a fuck what you're trying to do, right? And that's just, it kind of just spins on itself. Like, unless there was some sort of like government-backed esports agency, basically, like there's always going to be that crazy pressure for quarterly earnings to be up. Otherwise, your investors are going to be like, why are you wasting money on this? Because it's not going to, if it does work, it won't work for 5-10 years, right?
I mean, if you want my honest opinion on this, I think that what's happening with Overwatch League is going to be studied in business schools for a long time to come because of I think of what a screw up it is right now. Is that you had Blizzard realize what they had with StarCraft, right? And StarCraft 1 and 2 are both old games now, right? And still have a huge hardcore audience. We're still learning about them. You've got one, which was, I mean, I know remastered. It's like a facelift on the game, but it's not really been patched, right? It doesn't have balance patches. You have another one that has been patched, and both of them are doing fine. We're learning about them. And they got so caught up in the esports thing, suddenly everything had to be an esport. So they threw together some Hearthstone esports, which doesn't seem to do that great compared to most streams of just people playing Hearthstone. They tried to butt in and overtake Dota and League of Legends, but didn't seem to have the patience for it. Which, by the way, MOBAs are a lot like RTS, where they have to be around for a long time to catch on. And instead, the next game they made, which was like Titan, which is what Overwatch was a MMO originally, right? And they hammered together the shooting game that nobody asked for as an esport. There was no other example of it like this. And then they put all their money into that in this fucking crazy, like no turning back now. We're all in. And then, as this game comes out, suddenly battle royales are big. You know what I mean? And then StarCraft is rarely ever mentioned by Blizzard, despite this being probably the most authentic esport ever made.
Yeah, not even in their financial reports. Like, they actually omit it from like their list of IPs.
And I mean, if you want my honest opinion, I think that if they were really smart at business decision making, just do a StarCraft 3. Esports is so fucking big now. Or I know some of you guys would say Warcraft 4, but you get what I'm saying. Esports is so big now. If people hear that the original esport is coming back, the game that made the first boom and the second boom, you can do it again. I know that there's, and I've heard this from people, the concerns of how do we have microtransactions. And I guess this is where what you were saying is going to come in, Dan. But I just think that the decision making by Blizzard here has been so poor. And it shows how tone deaf they are about what esports is, where it should go, what it should become.
And, you know, that brings up a really interesting point, because I think there's one thing I find it fascinating that Activision Blizzard's doing, and I try to look at this relevant, or I guess like in comparison to something like Fortnite, where Epic strong armed the console developers to actually allow them to have they're one of the first completely cross platform games, which, especially for like a shooter, people were very hesitant about that sort of thing, right? Like they kind of tried to push for it and create the ecosystem, being like a free to play game, living product, like battle pass type stuff, but also bringing platforms together. Like you can literally play it on anything with anybody. And you at least through that, like how much of a better base could you get, right? Anybody who wants to play can play with anybody, regardless of what they have. And I think their Call of Duty product has actually been pretty well received, like in a relative sense. And even they kind of struggle with the identity of like when they tried to do it the first time with the last version. They're like, well, yeah, you have to buy the game and then you can play this mode. And then they tried to make just the one mode free, but you kind of have to come to a grip with reality where if you want to create this living product that's free and fully accessible to everybody, you still run into the issue where you're like, well, if you want to try and push that yearly release still, it's like you have to understand like what the identity you want your product to have. Like being able to build something that can last like that is really tricky, because even as good as it is, it's like, well, there's going to be another new one this year, right? Like it's inevitable. What kind of impact will that have if the only way to play your living product is to download a completely separate game that's going to have to, and I think it's like 300 gigabytes, something crazy. Like people have to uninstall all their other games to even play it. But there's, at least I think, a lot of very interesting like ways that companies are trying to solve this problem of building that audience and keeping it while also still trying to make as much money as they can.
It seems like there's conflicting business models with what Activision does and what Blizzard does. And by the way, I'm not here to just trash on Activision. Like, but what their model is they release a game every year, and the goal is like you're going to come back and you're going to buy this game every time. I mean, a lot of sports games are like this.
Yeah.
Well, they'll update the FIFA game, and if you're just a FIFA player, you'll show up, swipe your credit card, and do it. And Blizzard seem to have an approach that is probably less profitable short term, but they would basically build a game that you could live in, forever. Where BattleNet was always up, and there would be map editors, and anytime you want to come in here, you can play it. And I think as Activision wanted more profits, they're looking at it and saying, well, these games are also risky, which they are, right? Blizzard also develops games, they're in incubation, and then they kill them if they don't think they're going to be groundbreaking. And so I think now we're seeing them try to just get quarterly profits, whether that's through sales of a game, through microtransactions, whatever it is. And I think that completely interferes with what Blizzard used to be, which was a game company that would try to make a game that was so insanely good, like World of Warcraft, for instance, that people still play, or StarCraft, obviously, but most of their games are games that people just, it's a lifestyle, right? I got to get some water. My mouth is getting dry.
Yeah.
I think that there's conflicting visions, like not just within games being made, but conflicting visions for what to do with esports as well, right? If you look at like the very beginning, it's like, okay, this is the open model. And then 2012, it's like, okay, this is the by country model. And then 2013, this is the copy paste GSL into every region and let the Koreans move to those regions, destroying all three regions at once model. And then there's the, okay, let's region lock model. And then there's the let's start downsizing everything very slowly model. And then there's the, ESL has everything model. And so we've had all these things, and they don't build into each other at all. It's like these fucking different visions. And the thing is, I enjoy certain things about each vision, right? And there's good things in all of them, but I look at that all together and I'm like, this wasn't coherent, and this messes things up a lot, I think.
I think it is kind of similar to like whenever I think about something that doesn't have a that always has a beginning, sometimes has a middle, but they definitely don't see the end game, is like the show Lost, where they just kind of read it, episode after episode, and they didn't really have a coherent thing. And at the end, they try to tie it all together, but it's not really there. But just on the esport thing, just take a step back. I don't know how far of a tangent we are right now talking about casting as a career, but like this is the esports thing that Nick was talking about. Like, I think that the like trying to force something to be an esport is. I've seen it brought up before online as astroturfing. You know, you've got grassroots astroturfing, the fake grass. Like that's like astroturfing in the esports industry for a particular title that may or may not be a good esport. They've decided, you know, some developers do this where they decide this is going to be an esport before the game's even released. Like they're already laying the groundwork for a competitive side for that game and trying to make a giant league out of it and get all these sponsors and investors and everything for a league when you don't know if it's an esport yet. Like, is it going to be a good esport yet? The games that have lasted all this time are games that have been an esport and proven to be an esport for a very, very long time. And I think that there is a like the tough thing is in the current environment where people, like, as gamers, we all want patches, we want new versions, we want updates, we want we want new things. It's only really the older, more boomer gamer, if you will, that wants a game just stay the way it is and not touch it at all. Most new players of video games, they want to have they want to have updates. Shots fired. No, my point still stands is, like, I think that it's kind of hard because companies, they want to keep they want to keep people updated and keep bringing out new things. But how do you get that stable esport if it's updated all the time? You know what I mean? Like, how do you get a stable league or a good following and a stable player base? Even, like, people are going to be like, oh, I fucking hate this new patch, I'm not playing this anymore. Stuff like that.
I don't think updates are as much of a threat. I do think a larger issue, though, what you were saying.
Like new versions of a game. You know what I mean? Like the.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, that's more what I mean. Not so much updates and patches, but just like replacing a game with something else. Having a yearly or a yearly or whatever turnaround on a brand new title. Like, that just seems so hard to keep like, even with the release of Overwatch 2 coming out, it's only been a few years since Overwatch 1, and it looks like the same game.
It looks like DLC.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, for the most part, it really just
DLC.
is. It's single player DLC. If the game's completely cross compatible on the multiplayer side of things, then it is just single player DLC. And cosmetics, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah.
But that's a really interesting thing, because I started following as well. I've been trying to work more of the sports angle with esports because a lot of that stuff's happening out here. It's one of the reasons why I'm out here, because I know the Raiders have like a whole Twitch area on their stadium that they're using, that they're hoping to use right when football season starts and whatnot. But like that problem, it happens to a lot of companies. Like EA wants to have like this competitive division, and they're like, with Apex is like their first like living product type thing for that. And that's, I mean, those guys, well, they planned their first big event for like early March, so they completely shit the bed on that. Like, there's not really a whole lot you can do with the COVID that happened, but you run into other problems where like the business models conflict, like Tasteless was saying, where you have a game like Madden, and I play a lot of that, and it's the experience for it is hit or miss, right? Like, everybody knows, like there's it's like one of those things where it's largely updated for their microtransaction based mode. But they run esports tournaments where they have like some restrictions on what you can use from that. But then you're like, oh, we're going to launch a whole new game after running our league for an entire year. But like, it's the type of thing that like begs to be like a living product, But like, not every game that would benefit from being on that type of system is moving that way because of the focus, whether it's on the profits or trying to just being stuck on that old development cycle. It's like a really difficult question to ask. Like, I know Microsoft tried to rebuild like the competitive reputation of like Gears of War with their 4th release, and it was like kind of like, all right, well, we're making a new game. We're not going to have like one multiplayer mode that kind of exists on the outside, and that's I don't know. I find that to be a really interesting thing, because how do you? I agree. How do you actually build a long ecosystem? Like, I get updates, I get the incremental updates. Like, League does it well. I think StarCraft does it well. But like, if you were, how would we have a competitive StarCraft circuit if they're like, no, we're going to drop a new game every year and everybody is expected to switch over to this because the support for the last one is just totally gone?
I think you can. I think it's why you have to have like two different. These are almost like two different types of business models for two different types of games, right?
Yeah.
Also, like, excuse me. Another thing is like, in Maynard, you were talking about this earlier, but companies deciding something's an esport before it's out. I mean, look at a game like Rocket League, which I think nobody was even thinking esports and now it's hugely competitive and has a big scene. It just turns out, okay, this game has the depth. I think a lot of times esports are discovered; they're not actually created. Like StarCraft 1 was not made.
No, it was a single player game, right?
Yeah, it was a single player game. I mean, they were excited to have the multiplayer there, but like they didn't know that people are going to be playing it. They didn't even know the game could run this fast. You could have 400 APM and actually the game's coded well enough. All the inputs work and you can manipulate the environment in such a way.
It was a happy accident.
Right. Total accident.
Yeah.
Well, that is how games should be found anyways for esports. This weird thing that we went through where every fucking game that releases is an esport, that was pure comedy. It's died down some, but like some of the big highlights for that were every cell phone game coming out with a huge tournament and like the most beautiful stage you've ever seen. And it's like the fucking best players have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the game. It's like, what? And then, I mean,
wow.
Oh my God, there was some really silly shit that was going on there. With every single game being an esport. Like, oh God, there was one that was really funny. I'm going to try to remember it, so that'll pop up later. But
it almost seems like it'd be a smarter decision for a company to run some tournaments and see how it does, and then see the viewership and see, okay, is there an interest, or are there grassroots tournaments? Then to declare it an esport and talk about the prize pool. I don't know. I mean, I understand the difficulty from a publisher's perspective. Like, what are we going to do? I mean, I think it was pretty clear when StarCraft 2 was coming out, they were very interested in the whole esports part of it. But I think they had, at least at that point in time, a working model off of StarCraft 1.
Well, the interesting thing, I think, for a lot of these esports things is that basically when the publisher is making it an esport, that's generally like marketing dollars going into it. And that generally has a finite lifespan, right? Because publishers are not esports companies. ESL's an esports company, DreamHack's an esports company, MLG is an esports company, or and when it's a marketing budget going into it, I think that adds a lot of volatility to the life of like a caster, let's say, right? To bring it to that for a moment. It's like if like remember they announced Farming Simulator, the $250,000 world tour or whatever. It's like,
oh, I forgot about that.
At that point, that's I don't know. Actually, I'm kind of
it's clearly marketing. It's like, is this going to carry on after that initial input is gone? Probably not, right? Like, probably this is going to go away and just which
it definitely implies a little bit of like, hey, this is obviously not that serious, right? But I feel you on that. Like, I do believe that there's a good bit of like the if you build it, it will come. Like when companies set up these leagues with like no fucking accountability at all for their future, like people show up in droves to do the commentary, to work the production, to play. Like Heroes of the Storm, as much as everybody thought it was funny or whatever, like, oh, this will never be that big, this will never be that good. Like, people showed up. There were a lot of people there. There were,
people that are like, I'm going to Heroes of the Storm. It was
people were ready for that, right? So like, and if something else just popped up out of nowhere tomorrow, if just some new fake sports game was put up by some company, they're like, hey, we're on $100,000 tournament in a month. Like, sure as hell, there'd be a whole new people that have completely branded themselves as, I've been an expert in this game for 5 years. I knew about it before the company knew they were making it. Right? Like people are looking for these opportunities. There are people who want to be a part of that, but it's really hard because a lot of companies do exactly that, right? They'll say, hey, we want to make this commitment. I was just saying in the chat, like when Jeff and I worked on like the announcement for that Command and Conquer mobile game, like they brought us in, we got to meet the devs, we got to have conversations with them, we had feedback sessions. And they were like, yeah, well, great job with the announcement. And we're going to try and get like a league or a tournament going or something like that. And they like tried to encourage people to get into it. And then it just never happened. Right. And it's just like completely dematerialized. And you're like, well, at some point, it becomes a danger if like, just as an example, I mean, I guess we were kind of going down this, like talking about Blizzard, but as good of an example as I can give is if Blizzard were to announce another game, like let's say Overwatch League over the next 5 years fizzles out. They're like, hey, we're going to do something else. What happens when your reputation as a company is that if my game that I say is going to be competitive, I drop it with how many people, right? And unless anybody that's not looking for that cash grab, anyone that wants to actually invest themselves in something is going to look at you with a much bigger question mark over their heads about whether or not you're actually serious about committing to it, which is one of the reasons why, like, I'm not crazy about the game, but like, I like the idea of Valorant. Like, if you go by their track record, you know, like it's not like they just dropped everything that's happened. They've had something they've shown that they can run something for that long, and have it actually be a big thing, right? With League of Legends. So I don't know. I think that's like another risk that these companies run into because so many people are like, oh, we're going to put out the next big esport. And you're like, well, that's what you said about the last 2 games you came out with. And then you fired everybody within a year, right? And then like every single person who basically gave their time of day to you, they just got fucked.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, when they pulled the plug on Heroes of the Storm, I mean, that was one of the most impactful things that happened in all of esports because suddenly it signaled to everybody in every other game, this shit can just go away.
Mhm.
Nothing like that had happened yet.
That was a full pro scene. Just
That was a
fucking
full
gone,
pro.
man.
And I mean, I do understand that like, okay, the league's expensive and there's losses in some companies and there's tough decisions that have to be made. And, you know, this Blizzard doesn't have infinity money as successful and as big as they are. It's hard to choose what to do. But why would you start this giant league if it could just, you could end it? Because now people don't have faith in any of the esports programs. And now one of the big questions people are asking is, okay, what about Overwatch? You know, what's going to happen? How long is this going to last? And also, if let's say that does not succeed, what are the ramifications globally for the way people look at esports as an investment or as any kind of venture you want to partake in? Because it's, you know, one of the reasons why I love StarCraft is because it's fucking old. There's actually a story. You know, it's not where we're, you know, 15 months into the game and there's this really good 15-year-old player and then, who fucking cares? We ended the program. That's not exciting. What's exciting is seeing people rise, fall, come back. There's a new kid who's younger who's here. Maybe this old guy returns. That's actually what makes esports so good. It's why StarCraft has such a loyal viewer base. And there's so much you can do with it. But yeah, I think we've seen too many companies focus on returns way too quickly without really appreciating the health of the people that are playing in their games or working on their games. And then I think also just not understanding that this is supposed to be a long-term investment if it's handled correctly. I mean, Riot, and you were mentioning this earlier with Valorant. I totally agree with you. I think Riot has done the best job out of any company with handling their game. Through all the crazy shit that's happened in esports, they've just kind of kept moving forward. Their tournament's big. People laughed at League when it started to go on the rise. And now it's huge. It's stable. I mean, besides Dan and me, the rest of the casters out here are League casters. You know, most of them live down the street from me. I see them all the time. And they have stability. They have, you know, they have faith in the company and the future for them. And I think, you know, if you had to look at a company that's probably going to be safer, since we're talking about becoming a caster, I'd say Valorant, you know, or you know, maybe under that umbrella. You know, at the same time with Valve, what's happened is they've made it all free market, right? But it's been crazy. All these casters have been burnt out. They don't have any balance, nor do the players in their lives. I mean, a lot of these guys have a hard time keeping up with playing the game. They're on the road so much. I think a lot of people don't appreciate that until you realize, no, you've been in 4 different countries in 4 weeks. You know, you're reviewing
like 200 events a year or something like that, right? Like 200.
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
it's actually insane.
I know that
like
they
a
have to
dozen, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's a healthy balance, but yeah, I do have some concern overall with just the general way the industry treats pros and casters and everybody as far as their future. Are they invested in their futures or are they going to try to make a quick buck and then go to the next big thing?
I feel like there's like some cyclical things going on as well. Because I mean, we've been talking about the way that companies are making games and the way that they're focusing on esports, but also I think that Twitch itself and just availability of live streaming has eroded actual esports drastically. And we're seeing, like, for instance, okay, an esports production is really expensive to make. A really great production, look at I Am Katowice or something, right? That is insanely expensive. And like the thing is, it'll be a really high quality tournament. You have a lot of professionals working on it, a lot of production value, a lot of You know, everything. Pro gamers playing, a lot of skill, great games, all this stuff. And how much does that cost to put on, right? But then you can have something like Ninja when he was on Twitch streaming a fucking the same game, right? That might be at I Am Katowice and get more viewers. And it's like, what's the production value in that? It's like nothing at all, right? And so it feels like that weakens the position of esports because once upon a time when esports was first getting big, Twitch wasn't actually around at the very beginning of StarCraft 2. There was some live streaming services, but they weren't big. They didn't work all that well. You know, Justin TV was around back then and live stream and Ustream and that type of stuff. But now that anyone can get on, there's like, it almost seems silly when I think about it, when the amount of money that will go into an esports event to make a really high quality production versus just a popular streamer maybe doing the same game. And it reminds me of the difference between something amazingly beautifully well done, like Game of Thrones in the first 5 seasons, versus reality TV, right? Where reality TV gets like similar amount of views, costs nothing comparatively.
Well, I think that's a really smart point. I think there's a couple things to unpack there. So, yeah, like the example of reality TV. It turns out that if you just put 5 people in an apartment and give them free booze and have camera guys run around while they fight each other, you can make Jersey Shore, you know, and then you don't have to have, it's not Altered Carbon or it's not Game of Thrones or anything like that. But I still think there's a demand for a Game of Thrones or some major esports event if it's done correctly. I've also seen that there's been a lot of mismanagement of money in general with big esports, especially the new companies that come in, like PUBG, which is still huge out here in Korea. I mean, their esports program was entirely mismanaged. I mean, money was thrown around insane amounts that I don't want to say because I don't think it was ever announced, and I can't confirm that it's true. But I mean, just crazy amounts of money was spent. It kind of didn't go anywhere and it wasn't handled right at all. And so there's that issue as well, is that this is still new. I also think a lot of esports events are not have not figured out how to turn a profit yet. It's hard sometimes to go to new sponsors. I think this is something Overwatch League did fairly well. They seem to have gotten very mainstream large sponsors. But just to go back to what you were saying, yeah, I mean, sure, you can turn a stream on and someone like Ninja or any of those big streamers can end up pulling higher numbers than the events. But I would just imagine, just like anything else that's big, you know, like a sporting event, there's obviously got to be a way to handle that correctly and make that profitable. Otherwise, nobody would watch the NBA. They'd watch Michael Jordan shoot hoops in his backyard. You know what I'm saying? I don't.
That's the only thing keeping regular TV alive. That's what I've heard, at least, is regular TV still exists because of sports specifically.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's that, man, dude. The amount of money that I've paid for like those types of services just because it's the only good way to watch like live sports is no, it's dumb.
It's the only way that cable's there. I think the second one is cable news, like Fox and CNN, stuff like that. But yeah, I still think there's got to be a way in which this can be handled better. I don't know if I totally agree with what Dan said, where it's like the fact that other streamers can make so much money and get so many eyeballs is somehow detrimental to esports. What do you guys think?
I don't know. Gilly.
I think esport and single streamer is like a different product. One is like you said, like Michael Jordan shooting hoops in his backyard or something like that. But the other one is actually like a sport with a league, with a story, with a not just one guy. It's not just one guy's career. It's the career of production people, pro players. Like there's just so many more people involved in this product. And yes, maybe it has less viewership. But I know that viewership matters. But to me, I think most esports, everyone's trying to find a way for an esport to turn around into a profit. And I can't think of maybe CS:GO, like you mentioned, Nick, but I actually can't think of an esport that their tournaments are like a profit. They are usually a giant marketing expenditure.
Yeah, I guess the other thing too is that, you know, marketing venture probably turns into a profit one way or the other, right? I mean, the presence of these tournaments, you would have to assume it would. I guess I don't really know. I might be talking out of school here, but it would seem like if you had enough good microtransactions in a game, let's say, and then you just have these tournaments that you put on for free, that people can watch for free, in other words, and there's a prize pool that I would imagine that would turn into profits. I don't know. I've heard people say this where they're like, we can't tell if StarCraft 2's esports is profitable or it's not. And I'm like, okay, but then how many people would stop playing if you ended all tournaments, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think with our game, I think the climate of StarCraft 2, just to take a step back, is
Sure.
The climate of our game, StarCraft, is just I kind of like that something new is being tried at the moment, because I think with the climate of the game, sticking with what's proven or sticking with what's I guess expected is, or just going completely reliant on Blizzard is I think like not going to. It may still keep the game around, but I feel like it doesn't have potential to grow the game, if you know what I mean. Whereas I think that like having Blizzard taken a step back, which I think that their esports team has had some hits, it's had some misses, and considering how small the esports team has been for the past few years, I think they've done a pretty fantastic job, and I'll always say that. And a big love and respect to all the guys on that esports team. But the handing over of the keys of the house to ESL, I think, is a cool risk, and it's also a company that I think could potentially make more risks or take some more chances with the game, which maybe it affects viewership, but I think that it only, like, it's much higher likelihood that it's going to affect it in a positive sense, because people are going to be like, what's this going to be like? What's it going to look like? And it's really just such a fucking shame that COVID kicked in, because we would have had a couple of live events by now, and we would have had a bit better, like, it's the inaugural year of the new EPT Masters tour and that sort of thing. And obviously it's esports wide issue. I really like the idea right now with the climate of StarCraft 2, a 10-year-old game, StarCraft 1 being a 20-year-old game, to take some risks, to roll the dice a little bit and see what happens, while still taking the lessons of the publisher when it was all Blizzard, taking some of those lessons of what went wrong and trying to improve on that with something that's a new product. And I really wish we got to see what that was like. Sorry, Dan, you're muted actually for me. I don't know if
I can't hear him either.
Shit. There you are, buddy. There you are.
Sorry, I hit mute. Like,
You're right.
anyways, what you were saying, like, totally. When it's like Blizzard running StarCraft, right? That's publisher dollars, and that's like we were talking about before. That's like not really that reliable, because the shareholders, like Nate was talking about, it's like eventually that can just go away. I think giving esports to an esports company, ESL's fucking job is esports. They have to make esports content,
and they have to make it profitable.
Yeah, they have to do that. So it adds this huge level of stability, I would say, right? Like, we don't know exactly how it will turn out, and it maybe doesn't have the same spending power as a publisher might, right? That's two very different levels of companies and the types of budgets that they're willing to spend, because one isn't necessarily looking for profit and the other one is. But that's like how it feels, like how it should be, right? It's like that's how you can get something that goes more long term.
And right off of that, going back to our talk about Riot Tasteless, that's a big reason why it's successful. There's two pieces, right? If you want to have a successful esport, you need to have, obviously, someone has got to make the game, right? We don't expect ESL to just be like, I mean, and honestly, it could end up being a really good play if they out of nowhere were like, hey, we've actually secretly been developing a game that we hope can be competitive, so that we can use our platform to really elevate it to the next level, right? And build an ecosystem around it. And that's basically what Riot ended up doing, because they came up with that one game, right? And you're like, oh, they're a game studio, but they have one game. But it wasn't just being a game studio, it was also a production studio. And Blizzard hit a lot of pitfalls trying to move into the esports, because they were going through white label companies that were, they were like, oh, they've done TV stuff because they wanted to try to work outside of esports. And then they just ran into all these nightmares because they're working with production companies that don't know gaming. You have game producers who are personally taking charge of esports programs. And, you can have a guy who has a really good idea of how to set up and organize a game team. He can get his devs to make patches on time, whatever. But that person is not a broadcast director. Those aren't the people that are going to be, they're going to look at the stage and really, like, in their mind, see the show come to life without having it all there. And you get a lot of that tripping up, and a lot of people end up circulating in and out on their production teams and whatnot. And we get to see that happen. But I think one of the most interesting parts about that is how do you come up and do both sides of it to a good job? Because at the end of the day, from Blizzard side, you're going to hear, well, they're a game dev company, right? Like expectations on the tournament side can only be X, Y, Z. But at the same time, they want to call themselves also the production company, right? So you have to find that balance. Like, at what point are you going to be willing to say that you're two types of companies rather than one that's trying to do both jobs?
Yeah, it
Back
has
in
been a
sec.
pretty fascinating thing to watch these companies that are basically game development companies turn into sports management companies and broadcast companies, right? I mean, it's a pretty fascinating thing. I didn't have more to add than that. Sorry. I was like,
Yeah.
No.
isn't that crazy, guys?
Yeah,
no.
it's something I think about a lot. Yeah.
Hmm.
Production companies being separate from the game developer is a massive gap, because then it becomes who's making the right amount of money, right? Is ESL getting enough of a cut for running StarCraft? Is
Mm.
Blizzard getting enough? Is Blizzard getting their fair share? Right? And then if Blizzard's running it, like, are they motivated to make the production better, or are they motivated to try and, make everything that comes from the esports side translate into numbers for game sales, right? Because when they talk about their numbers, they don't talk about them like, oh yeah, our broadcast stuff were like this. They're like, well, game sales didn't increase during the tournament, right? Like, and there's just a big disconnect when you have a conversation about, was a tournament even worth running in the first place? Well, if from the perspective of the game company, it never will be, because you're not going to sell 1 million copies of StarCraft during the BlizzCon finals. Like, it's just an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah. Well, wasn't the most successful relationship in a lot of ways like the Kespa era in StarCraft 1, where Blizzard just wasn't involved. Like, I guess they probably made some money because more people bought StarCraft, but not that much because there's no
They were
microtransaction.
locked out. Blizzard was locked out of
Yeah.
StarCraft. Yeah.
Yeah. The only way that they would make any money there would be like game sales or something. But that was like true, pure esports, right? Like that, what that was. It was just like that, a whole industry blossomed around that. Whereas when everyone's trying to get a piece of the pie, it's like, but the pie doesn't even does the pie even exist at this point? Like it's I don't know. I look at that this big time streamer reality TV against the high production Game of Thrones esports tournament, and I'm like, oh god, like where does this shit end up at, and how do like who's going to be a professional? Because now I look at it right, and to be a professional esports caster in this climate, it's kind of like you're not just a caster anymore. You have to stream as well, right? Like even if you guys do
Oh
every
yeah.
event, Nick and I are a little bit different because we live in Korea and have studios
Yeah.
that we work out of regularly. But with you guys, like you have to stream, right? You can't even if you get every single event you want during the year, it's not enough, right?
Yeah, I mean, Nick was talking about the best possible outcome for a commentator is to have a studio that you can go to at a regular basis and commentate and have a regular stable sort of income that way. And
Yeah.
it's like that doesn't exist in so like in League it does, all in Korea, of course. I think in Europe and stuff like that it exists for League, and obviously Counter-Strike has a bunch of events you can go to, but they're not like, I think Flashpoint might just be in one studio. I'm not super sure about that, but a lot of Counter-Strike events, as we've mentioned many times, is just all over the place, like at different studios, different places all around the world. No one really has a home base, and certainly in StarCraft 2, there is no home base. Take TV has sort of a home base, kind of, um, and GSL, Africa, and that sort of thing. But I really don't foresee that happening again for our game. I don't think Afrika will go away, obviously, but I think that like I can't see another guy going, yeah, let's start a StarCraft LAN center where we just run production and that sort of thing and have some in-house commentators. That just doesn't. I don't see that happening. Unfortunately, I would have loved for that to be the case, but I think that's something that exists in Overwatch League. But even they seem to be having like the homestead thing. I'm not sure that's kind of taken everyone out of that
Well,
one studio,
yeah.
right? And once again, make everyone go on the road again. And travel to different states and different countries and stuff for events. So again, you're on the road even for that esports. So I don't know, man. I kind of think that every esport you should be streaming if you want to be a commentator. You really should try and take as much control. Just to bring it way back to what I said at the beginning of the cast of this show, that you got to try and take control of as much of stuff as you can have control over. So even if that comes to running your own tournaments, like Wardy does all the time, commentating those tournaments yourself on your channel, like being a second streamer or a first streamer, or just like creating stuff that you own, using that game as a basis of content. I think that's super important right now in every esport, every single one.
Yeah. And to expand a little bit on that as well, just if you have to think about, like, obviously there's a lot of current implications that are affecting stuff like that, but some of those ideas and those directions are good though. Like long term wise, like if something like that homestead program, for example, like succeeds enough, and you can actually build a local community around stuff, you can justify putting on more events at like these venues. Like some of these places are really serious. Like the one that they're putting up in Philadelphia is at their sports complex. It's like a really big, beautiful park. It has their football stadium, their baseball stadium, their hockey arena. Like it's all there. It's only their sports stuff, and they're building like an esports stadium there. Like in a theoretical future where you can get the audience attention and be able to regularly put on high quality events there, that creates the future for commentators where like I myself, I've spoken to some of the people like in charge of those events and stuff. Obviously nothing's going to happen this year, which sucks, but like that's something that I see as an opportunity. I'm like, well, hey, if I could move to Philadelphia and just, cover other games, but, work at the same venue and kind of be in that and have like a host role, for example, or something like that. I think that's a big step forward for American esports, at least. And I've always thought one of the harder parts about it is, and I'm not going to claim to be an expert on how like governments work outside the United States, but like up until this incident, if you were doing anything that wasn't a W-2 job for somebody and you lost your job, it was like, that's it. It's game over. No one's going to help you. There's not a whole lot of resources you're going to be able to get until you can basically prove that you're below the poverty line, which is still really hard because they don't care about your self-employed work, right? So that's always been made it hard to try and do esports in the US, because if you try to be a StarCraft player in WCS America and then they cancel the league after a season and you're like, oh, well, I got to look for a job, right? Like you're not going to be able to get unemployment or anything like that, right? There's nothing that's going to try and help you in that situation. Because it's like, full-time job stuff is tied to a lot of things, at least in the US. But yeah, I personally I've been doing pretty okay outside of the area with like StarCraft, because we had kind of that home base last year, the last 2 years really. Between like me, Ravi, and Jeff, and Jess out there a few times. Like for me, that was like a really good consistent amount of work. But I also picked up doing other events. I think I must have done like 20 one-off events last year. So I can say in that front, casting in general, not just for one game, was enough to pay my rent for the whole year. Like I did not need to stream last year, like looking back from like a financial perspective. But obviously, events are usually going to be spaced out to some point. You have spare time. And I've always, I've been streaming since before I started casting. And if I ever stop casting, I hope to still be streaming afterwards.
How hard is it when you guys go to events? Because I've only been streaming for like a little bit over 8 weeks now. But it's already very obvious to me, like, okay, this is like, it's like a plant you have to water every day, but that means you have to have the stream running. And then when you go, it's possible for somebody to sub you while you're not streaming, but it's not likely, right? And obviously, especially for you, Maynard,
I tell my wife, someone subscribed to me while I was offline, and I'm like so excited when it happens. It's so rare.
Because if you have to do, let's say, IEM Katowice, especially for you, Maynard, that would be like 11 days away from Australia, right?
Maybe
more actually.
IEM Katowice is like a 6-day event, right? And then you have like the 2 days. Yeah, it'd be maybe 10 days or something like that. Like definitely over a week. When I go away, I make mental safety nets for myself where I try to, like, I'm one of those guys that tries to apply logic for every situation. And when I go to that event, I have this distinct build where I do not look at my Twitch dashboard. I will never, ever look at my Twitch dashboard, because that will just depress me. I'm just like, okay, I'm here to focus on the event. And I know while I'm not live, I'm losing subs. There are so many people out there that will always tell you, you are the greatest commentator ever. I fucking love your show. Your stream is the best. And they'll be like the biggest supporter of your stream. But it's only when you're live. If you're not live, there are only the super diehards that will stick around, right? And when I go to these events, I try to focus on one thing at a time. I'm very like sort of, let's get through this event and then let's get home. And then when I've got home, I've decompressed, I've unpacked, I've had a good night's sleep, I've had a good meal. Let's look at that dashboard. There it is. Okay. And then I try and look at that I try to package it as a motivation rather than a demotivation. I'm like, okay, I know that when my first stream back, I'm going to make a big chunk back because a lot of people will be like, oh, he's back. I've had a Maynard drought. Yes. And I get excited. And boom, that first stream's usually, you undo a lot of damage. But I don't like have any strategy other than the fact that try to stream as much and be as when it's also depends on your mood as well, because if you try and stream when you're tired or you're just not entertaining, it also shows on your stream as well. So it's like you have to be well rested.
I fucked up.
You have to be well fed. What you fucked up? Talk to me. What happened?
No, I just I did it was one of our Saturday casts. So Artosis and me, for a Saturday cast, we finish. It starts at 1 p.m., but it usually finishes around like 3:30 or under 5 p.m. Right. So I said goodbye to Dan. I hopped on the train, and then I thought, you know what? I'm gonna flip the stream on and just play until maybe 8 or 9, not appreciating how mentally drained I'd be.
Yeah.
After doing a GSL cast, like I love casting, but I do find there's a lot of stuff I'm not gonna be able to do after that, and so I just started streaming myself playing StarCraft. And I was just like fucking losing every game, and I could feel myself getting salty.
I think you, in fact, all four of us are pretty similar in the sense that if we are, we're pretty energetic people, like on broadcast and also just in person. And I feel like people expect that in a stream as well. And I'm not, spoiler alert, guys, I'm not super energetic and very bubbly every day. Sometimes I actually don't say anything to anyone for like 24 hours straight. I just sit there silently. But when you're on stream and when you're on your broadcast, you have to sort of you be an engaging figure. Someone that people want to talk to, that they want to engage with, because that's what Twitch is. It's not just a show. It's a especially when it's a personal stream. Obviously, esports, it's a show, but when it's a personal stream, is when like you're talking about you're playing on your computer, you're playing ladder. That is a interaction. People like the fact that they can interact with you and get something from you as like a little tidbit or something. By the way, if you guys don't sub the Tasteless, I strongly suggest you do, because he has the greatest alerts on Twitch. This is the smallest tangent.
Been farming our Tasteless rage clip.
The greatest alerts ever. And I wish that I thought of it. I'm like, God, he's a genius. He is a fucking genius, this kid.
I got some more stuff in the works. Not even just Artosis alerts, but I got some other stuff I'm working on. I'm actually really enjoying building the stream. I just, one thing about streaming StarCraft too is that it's such a my body is ready game.
Yeah, you have to be ready.
It's not like I don't know, Minecraft or something, where you can flick it on and
yeah, no, you're right.
Hang out.
So many times where I'm like, oh, I don't feel quite like I could handle ladder today. And there's been a few times where I've experimented and I'm going, no, I'm going to push and I'm going to ladder. I'm going to just push through this negative feeling. I'm going to push through this bad sleep and just try and have a ladder stream. And it's always a disaster. It's consistent. This is always a disaster. You got to be ready. You got to be switched on. You got to feel good, or it's just going to be a disaster.
Do you ever? Sorry, there's a delay here. Do you ever find it like you don't want to turn the stream off, or you want to just turn it on randomly because you know that you can make more if it's on? There's always a chance someone just, because I've talked to a lot of streamers who bring this up, where like you'll take a day off and you'll feel guilty because your computer's right there. You could just hit a button and go live.
I find that I deal with that by having it's not a super rigid schedule, but it is a schedule. I have days that I'm going to broadcast and days that I won't. And I make it very clear to, maybe a new viewer, and the old viewers already know that if it's Saturday, Sunday, main night, I'm streaming. I'm not streaming. Saturday, Sunday is main night time. I'm a Monday to Friday kind of guy.
Saturday, Sunday, I didn't know that. Why is it sad?
What?
Because you can't watch Maynard.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
But did I say sad? What did I say? I forgot. But anyway, it's just by having like a schedule where you feel less like, because I did that as well when I first started streaming. Like when I first got my partnership on Twitch, and I'm like, the first 4 or 6 or so weeks, I was just like, I'm going to do 2 streams. That stream was really fun and kind of addicting, and I want to do another one. and then just like turn on the stream randomly. And I found that it wasn't as good for your channel as having a more scheduled broadcast time where people expect you to be live. They're like, oh, right now there's going to be a plus minus 30-minute window where Maynard is about to turn on his stream, and my streams are a certain length of time as well, so people know when it's going to end. So it's sort of more like a show, kind of, even though it's interactive, rather than just being like, fuck it, turn it on, we'll see what happens. You know, I feel like that is a bad way to go about it, just because consistency is so important. Like just being live and also being live for a certain amount of time at a certain time of the day is consistent. And I think it's a good way to go.
Yeah, like a TV show, you know. How do TV shows grow, right? Everyone's like, oh, Game of Thrones is on at 8:00 on Sunday, right? You plan your day around that shit, you know. Someone says to themselves, oh yeah, well, you know, Maynard's always on at 5:00, so I know, you know, I can turn it on the radio while I'm driving home. I can listen to, you know, him talk about his day, and then by the time I'm, you know, at my computer or chilling having a beer, he's playing StarCraft, and I can watch that. And like people being able to have that consistency to know when you're going to be on, and also like to some degree as well, like a consistent expectation of what's going to happen on that stream is another really big part of, you know, being able to actually build it into something that that can grow. I'm not even going to claim to be good at that. It's really hard to be consistent, right? To keep your mood
absolutely.
good every day, and to make sure that you're always like trying to at least show good games.
See, that's why my stream is really brilliant, because I'm not in a good mood every day, and I don't consistently show good games, and it works.
But people have that expectation, though. But that's a part of your brand.
You have this
that's a huge part.
Brand. You have this special brand that if you start your stream and you feel like shit, it's actually good for your stream, because you are going to blow up, and people are going to be like, yes, this human's being crushed by this video game, and I love it.
Yeah, the days where I feel worse, the stream does better or something. It's like,
right? Yeah.
If I'm having a bad day,
it's important to never not be yourself. You know what I mean? A lot of people they'll try to put on too much of a character, and it's like that is so exhausting.
Yeah, I am always. I mean, I can't not be myself on my stream, because that's just me playing games and talking to people. I do like special. I'll put on the radio voice and that sort of thing when I get a sub or something like that. It just is like a special sort of celebration moment. But usually when I'm just playing the game, it's just me. It's just unfiltered, as is Artos' stream to the nth degree, and I just love it. But I think that you know, I treat the streaming like a business. Like it's an entrepreneurship. And sometimes you can get addicted with that. You can be like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. I want to put more money into it. I want to put more hours to it. I want to do all this stuff. But it really is just consistency is just so important, and it can be demotivating sometimes at first, because you're like, oh, you know, I'm having less growth because I'm live less, or I have less viewership because, you know, an EU broadcast time. So like at nighttime, usually when you broadcast Tasteless, it's a really good EU time in the afternoon in Korea. Is very good for Europeans, because it's morning over there, morning to like late morning, afternoon over in Europe. So you have a higher viewership. But I find that when I stream, which is the morning, so you would be fast asleep. Taste is probably just tucked into bed.
I'm not there. Yeah.
No. But that time
right now in my life, I would be milking my cows and getting the eggs for my chickens. Okay, is what I'd be doing.
The rooster would be crowing, and
right now it's 11:30 right now. I look at my phone, I go, oh, there's so much more time, and I turn it back off and go to sleep.
But that's you know, something I realized is that streaming at the NA time slot and staying consistent, the NA time slot was actually very good for my stream as well. Because you know, Twitch will give you metrics to say this percentage of viewership comes from this particular region of the world. And I found that like not only viewership started to grow, but also just interaction with my stream started to grow.
I didn't even know that. Really?
You're getting free streamer advice right now, Tasteless. Like the fresh budding StarCraft streamer. We got so much. We got a whole new world for you, Tasteless. I'm taking you on a magic carpet ride.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got a whole new world of Twitch to show you. But this, I still feel like I'm so newbie with it though. Like there are so many times where a Fear Dragon or Zombie Grub will be like, "Oh, have you checked this feature or this thing?" And I'm like, "What?" Oh, I had Upper Tree Zelda in my stream yesterday, and he's like, "Oh, check your frames dropped." And I'm like, "I'm not dropping any frames, man." He's like, no, it's like a renderer dropped frames. And I'm like, "What the fuck are you speaking to me right now? You are speaking a completely different language. Please speak English. I don't understand what you're talking about."
Lost frames. Oh boy.
Upper Tree is the number one person for fixing shit. He is,
and he's like,
amazing.
no, it's not your drop frames, it's not your split frames, it's like your encoder frames or whatever. I'm like, what? Stop. You're hurting my brain.
I feel guilty knowing him because like I needed help with something, so I just messaged him casually. And the thing is, his icon on Discord wasn't even on, and then the green phone lit up.
Yeah,
And then
he's just check your phone. Yeah,
he got on a call with me. He's like, "Well, I'm just sitting at my table eating dinner right now, but let me walk you through this." I'm like, "No, you don't have to do that."
Uppertree actually messaged me because he's such a fucking sweetheart. He messaged me during this show on Discord and tried to call me during the show on Discord because of what he was talking to me about yesterday. He's like following up. He's like, "Hey man, how'd the stream go? How many frames did you drop? Did anything that I make a difference?"
He's a wonderful
And he tried
man.
to give me a call. And I'm like, oh, I feel like if we give Tasteless's Discord to Uppertree's gonna get a lot of calls. He's gonna get.
I'm useless for some of this stuff. Yeah, I've actually talked to Uppertree before. He helped me get the mics figured out for what we needed for the podcast. So I've already been there. He's a beautiful human being.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I don't want to tangent too much from where are we at with that topic right now? Because we're like we're just free fall.
Yeah, we're off the deep end at this point.
We're off the deep end
every time. I do want to pose a question to you guys though, right? Because we've kind of come into this. Well, at this point in this industry, I guess is the better way to put it. Generally speaking, you're kind of like being a commentator, but also being a streamer. That's like basically the norm, especially for StarCraft streamers. And this is a StarCraft show or a StarCraft commentator.
And I do think that's really important for anyone that wants to be a commentator in any game, especially in a StarCraft esport where there are so few events. It's just going to be incredibly hard to break into that level.
Yeah.
Oh no, go ahead, Nate.
I was just a quick point. Like, it's also a safety valve. Like, I did a ton of different stuff. It wasn't not even StarCraft. The last gig I actually did was a Call of Duty thing back in like at the end of February. But having my stream, right, having that and actually being consistent with it, like I'm okay in this scenario. I haven't had any work at all since then, right? There's been no events that have been happening, especially in the United States. So like it's also just like a smart thing to have something that you can at least control to some degree, that somebody can't just be like, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, well, you know, with how things are, we're not going to be able to hire you for anything for a year. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, that being said, I feel like I know part of your answer to this already, but like, what do you guys think? Like, in the optimally, if you could choose, for instance, like, would you prefer to have like casting be a side thing? Would you prefer for the industry, the StarCraft 2 esports industry, to take you more seriously and just be a full-time caster? Would you prefer to be, you know, half and half? Like, how do you actually look at this and set it as a goal? Because I feel like the more that casters need to be streamers, it actually does impact the broadcast. I think people don't see it that much, but for instance, if you're streaming a lot, you don't really have time to watch as many VODs, so maybe you don't know some of the more obscure things going on. Not that that's necessarily gonna really impact it, but I can see there's certainly trade-offs when you're streaming and casting as opposed to just casting.
Okay, can I jump in on this one?
Yeah, please.
I think if you're just like, there's probably a lot of people who just stream who are watching this. A lot of what you learn in streaming will not help you at all in working in a professional broadcast environment. In fact, I've heard a lot of horror stories of people that just stream and then they show up on a set and they don't know how to work with a director, or they don't understand that they can't cut to commercial. The producer has to tell them, the person in the room, you know what I mean? So I think streaming as a way to supplement income is, I mean, absolutely, it's good. You got to have some experience in working on a stage and on a set. I personally, I'm really liking streaming. I did not like streaming before when I did it. You guys probably remember we used to stream on Azubu a long time ago. Like that was before this. They were paying us to stream on this to stream into a black hole. Okay, like nobody's there. This is what the people on Mixer probably feel like, but they had given us a deal. And so I'm streaming like fucking nobody, and I hated it. And I just thought, okay, streaming's not for me. But now that I'm streaming on Twitch and I got my little nerds showing up and we're hanging out, we're memeing and stuff, and it's fun. I really am enjoying it. For me personally, I think I've got a really good deal where, you know, the studio's not far from my house. I go there, I do my work, and then I can stream on the days I have off. So I'm enjoying it. I am missing events though. But I think it's good to have both. Also, as somebody who's just been a caster, because Dan, you've been streaming for much longer than me. I mean, the industry is just not reliable enough all the time. I mean, luckily I'm in Korea, so I can, if I really wanted to, just cast. But with no events going on, there's no reason to not stream here too. And I'm really enjoying it.
But if you had the choice, I think it was Dan is asking, if you had the choice of being like a just studio caster or a just streamer or being a bit of both, what would you choose?
Well, I think the only logical answer is a bit of both, right? Then you have you have your hands on two different pies, right? You know what I mean? Oops, sorry, I knocked something over my desk. Yeah, you have two different sources of income. You can leverage your streaming so that if you really want to say no because they don't pay you enough, you go, okay, I have a stream I can go back to. You have the ability to say no. You can ask for more from there, and then whenever you're doing a show like a major broadcast, it should bring viewers back to your stream, right? You could mention it there, so it would seem like the only logical answer would to be both, or to do both.
I think if I had a choice, I wouldn't be a 50-50 studio broadcaster streamer. If I had the choice, and it was just like this magical world where I could just choose. I actually do enjoy streaming, but I don't enjoy streaming enough where I could see myself doing more than a few hours. You know what I mean? Like my streams are usually between 4, maximum 6 hours usually when I stream. And if I had the choice, I would much rather. I feel like my skill set is much better for being a on-camera desk commentator, like someone not necessarily the suit and tie ESPN thing, but just being someone that is an on-screen personality, an esports broadcaster. I feel like I'm a lot better at that than just being a solo Twitch streamer. So if I had the choice and I could choose my income and live very comfortably, I would be like maybe a 80-20 with the favor being of a studio broadcaster. I would much rather be a studio broadcaster than a Twitch streamer, but I do enjoy Twitch streaming, so I would still do it like maybe less regularly, just like every now and then. It's like I always want to hang out and talk with the community and hang out with the community. But I would take if I was a studio broadcaster, like Dan mentioned, I would also be putting a lot more of that time into just being really fucking good at it, like just watching VODs and being really try hard with my notes and just making sure that I'm nailing it. Yeah. I'd put 80% of my effort into it instead of just 50-50.
Yeah. I would definitely much prefer, as far as like from in a professional setting goes, doing the studio events, doing commentary. Last year was for me like the first real year where I didn't need to depend on my streaming stuff, and I'm not. I've been in this industry long enough to kind of have my bearings on where I think I can go with certain things. And I think my ceiling, if I can seize the opportunities for commentary or hosting type work, I think my ceiling is way up there. I have my 5-year plan is built off of the industry continuing to grow and looking for opportunities through my commentary work, not through my Twitch work, right? I've been doing this for 8 years. If I was going to blow up and be a super big famous Twitch streamer, make $1 bajillion, it probably would have happened by now, right? Like I'm not oblivious to my own reality, but I do really enjoy doing commentary. And last year for me was really big because I got to work with a bunch of different companies. I did my first major offline event that wasn't StarCraft, and that was like a really big moment for me. And I, all the way up until the point where everything got canceled, I was still talking to them about what they were going to try to do at their live events and finding ways to use that. So I much more so I love that. I love talking on camera. I like talking to people. I love doing explanations. As much as I love streaming, after a certain amount of time, especially with a game like StarCraft, like I suffer from burnout probably worse than a lot of other people as well, because I'm just a generally anxious person. So when I get stressed out, when I'm tired, I get mad real easy and I say dumb shit, and that just makes it really hard to be like consistent with like the message that I want to put out, which most of the time is pretty vanilla, or I try to be like positive about stuff, do breakdowns, analysis, but it's, I think, a lot easier when you can kind of focus your efforts into a certain period of time. Like if I could have a dream job right now, I'd be like, well, I want to run esports and be like the esport figure for like a real professional big organization like CBS or like the NFL or something like that. Like that's where I want to be. I want to be doing their esports stuff. I want to be that guy. But I
Over
still
my
love
dead
streaming, and
body,
I
would be
would
that
still
guy.
do it on
All
the
right.
side. I'd still do it on the side. I would just, I'd be obviously a lot more loose with it. It was really fun. Like I had to do this Sekiro event, and I just didn't stream for a week because it was going to pay well. And I just spent the entire week just digging through Sekiro VODs and trying to play this game. Playing it was impossible, but like it was a really fun experience to have that challenge as like for commentary stuff to be like, oh yeah, no, my goal for this week is not to do anything other than know this thing that I've, been given 6 days to learn everything about. And that, I don't know, for me that was a fun challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like for me it's kind of a complicated thing because I like the relief that they both give to each other, right? Where you're not as stressed over everything. Like I'm pretty over certain aspects of the casting industry, like people trying to be like, oh, you should do this for like no money, basically. Like I mean, everyone sees those fucking memes. It's like, oh, there's exposure over here or some shit, or like
Yeah, let me
here's
go to the grocery store and get some exposure. Get my exposure wallet out for my groceries.
here's an offer so low that you're doing this for $5 an hour. It's like, what? No, I'm pretty done with all that, right? So like I really like the relief that doing your own thing provides, but at the same time, I think that doing a big event is kind of like that's uh, for me like a very special thing. It's such a big up to go to another country and cast in front of all these fans that are just dying for a nice StarCraft tournament and get some great games and crown some champion, and it's like this huge high and this huge up and then the huge down of going home and everything. So yeah, I don't think I have an answer really for my own question. It just kind of same time, it's like there's nothing that excites me every day more than playing StarCraft. Like I love commentating as my job, but like streaming allows me to play, and I am literally every day, like even when I have a terrible stream, within about 2 or 3 hours, I start getting excited to play again the next day, and I'm just
Me
like,
too. That's so fucking weird. I have the thing with the StarCraft 2 ladder because I play StarCraft 2 all the time. I'm just like, I'll play it and I'll be like, God, that stream fucking sucked. I'm like, God, I'll go outside the
yeah,
backyard and then I'll just like, pat my dog. And within like 15 minutes to an hour, I'm like, oh, I'm actually pretty excited to try that build again tomorrow and see how it works.
yeah, yeah, no,
It's so
exactly.
weird.
Like I
Yeah.
had a terrible stream the day before yesterday where I lost like fuck. I went like 3-9 or something. It was insane. It was bad games. If there had
Three
been a
and nine
volcano
bad for you?
on my window,
Goddamn.
I would have pushed my whole desk into it. Luckily, there wasn't. And within a few hours, I was like, I can't wait to get on tomorrow. It's going to be great.
I think for me, like it's so cool to just be able to play StarCraft because I started so long ago where it was like, well, you got to make up a fucking fake job for yourself and then convince a company just so I can be around what I want to do anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where I'm like, listen, you'll give me a mic and I'll go talk about it. And I love casting and everything, but I think it's really nice to now just turn on the stream and play StarCraft and money will come in and I'm like, oh, I'm literally doing exactly what I did when it started for me.
Yeah.
I am literally trying to just figure out builds and ladder. And so I'm really, what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, how funny. Because I've moved across the world and learned a different culture and convinced the studio to let me go on camera. And now it's like, oh, but you can also just play too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do love putting on shows. It is fun. It sounds like there's a grass is greener thing here where it's like, Dan and you're like, oh, we can still stream and it's okay. And you guys like want to do more of the events, it's
I do. For me, it's just I feel like I'm just better at being that guy. Being like a desk commentator, someone that's in presence with other people and talking to them about that. I just feel like I'm better at that than being a streamer. Maybe some people out there disagree, but I feel like I'm just so much more confident at that. That's just why I chose it. Not because it's more stable or because it's better pay. It actually has very little to do with pay. It's just that I feel like I am going to provide a better product by being an on-camera desk host kind of person.
Well, after about 12 or 13 years of commentary and 22 years of playing StarCraft, it seems like the results for me are in that I'm better at commentary than playing. But at the same time,
yeah. Well, it's not even playing for me. Like it's not playing at a high level. It's being a good streamer. You know what I mean? Which I feel like is a different skill set than just being a good player. You know what I mean? Obviously, if you can play well and be a good streamer, that's the nuts. You really want that, but That's so hard to be a good StarCraft player and also a good streamer because everyone just goes try hard and gets silent all of a sudden. You know, you'll read chat for like the first minute, and then as soon as you've got your natural and the build's starting to round out, it's like, all right, see you, chat. See you on the other side.
You mentioned the portal. You mentioned the portal, and then all of a sudden, a 4-hour stream is done. You look at your chat, and you're like, "Oh man, I wasn't a part of this conversation at all. Man, I feel like I fucked up." Right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Well, I didn't even win all those games. What was I doing?"
Yeah. But anyway, that's more what I meant. Just to make it clear.
Sure. Any other thoughts on? Well, it's been a very wide-ranging subject. So, any thoughts on anything else before we go into Patreon questions? Anything that has been left unsaid?
I feel like we've made jumping into into being a commentator sound like a really not doable thing. So I'm going to take a step back from that and just say that all of us started doing what we're doing right now because we love doing what we're doing right now. Like we actually love the games and we love being a part of the game, and we wanted to try and make something out of, we wanted to basically enjoy our jobs and enjoy our lives. And I think that if you want to be a commentator, even though maybe we're saying a bunch of stuff that's disparaging, don't stop producing content. There are a lot of things I think you can do in the current climate. Maybe you don't get those desk host jobs that I really like. Maybe you don't get invited to a big international event. Maybe that never happens. But you can still always produce your own stuff and have control of your own destiny kind of with commentary. And your Twitch stream is always your Twitch stream. So follow your dreams. Don't let us demotivate you. You can... I mean, there are quite a few people out there that have made a very successful life for themselves by just producing their own stuff. So get out there and do what you love, and don't let salty old graybeards like us tell you.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I want to echo that a little bit because, like, I might have sounded too pessimistic, but for me, it's just I'm always concerned about, is the industry going in the right direction? Are people being treated fairly? But yeah, follow your dreams. I mean. I started out making virtually no money doing this, and now I'm doing well for myself. And it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah. And me personally, like I'm not going to give numbers, obviously, but I used to make so much more money being a full-time engineer and using my holiday time to go cast events than I do right now being full-time in StarCraft. But I've also, it's almost there's another scale of happiness as well, where the scale of happiness has gone from this up to here, from being full-time commentator and StarCraft streamer. And my scale of money has got an opposite trajectory where it's been going down. But even then, that's starting to build. That goes up and down. But obviously, it took a giant dip when I left the full-time industry. But I've never been happier. So I think that happiness is just so much more important. If you are ever in a blessed lifestyle where you have the ability to follow your dreams and still live, obviously paying the bills and being able to eat is important. But yeah.
And if I could just add, I'll try to keep it brief, but. Look at a guy like Wardy. I saw so many comments in the chat today, people talking about, well, how does a guy like him get through to doing offline events? How does he break out? Dude, Wardy has, and he works extremely hard. So I mean, please try to take this in the way I'm trying to say it, because I'm bad at saying stuff sometimes, but he's hit the jackpot. He has an audience that he has built through an insane amount of hours that, I mean, just glancing at the viewer count that he gets, if I would easily take care of himself for a very long time with what he's doing right now. And it's because he puts in a lot of work. He's extremely consistent. Whether you love him or you hate him, he's always there, and he's always putting out that content. And the important thing to understand is a guy like Wardy does not need to do live events if you're at that point. Like, it's not like it would be that easy for any big caster to put on a tournament and be like, well, yeah, we're going to be able to consistently get 3,000 or 4,000 people watching every single day, even in the early rounds of an online cup that's got $100 prize pool where it's no names getting dunked on by, like Clem and Denver and like these big players that are really good. And that success and that goal doesn't need to be the top of the mountain. There are places where that online community role is so important. And in my mind, I'm like, he's an extremely successful individual. And in many ways, even though if like you're doing events or whatever, like there's a bit of envy for that, right? Like he can do it all from his own home. He runs half the shit that he does. He's got like 3 leagues and tournaments that he puts on. Like, I'll be honest with you, doing live event stuff is really, really hard. And that space is crazy competitive. And there's a whole bunch of either nepotism or favoritism done for people that they know behind the scenes for getting live gigs and whatnot. But man, if you want to talk about an actually achievable goal that still has a pretty fucking awesome ending, it's a aim for that, man. That guy become the #1 big community caster guy in StarCraft, and I mean, I'd be absolutely blown away if he wasn't raking it in, and he deserves to be raking it in for what he's been able to do for the scene.
Yeah.
Can I jump in and say one more thing? Sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
I was just sorry. I had to get away for a second. The food got delivered to my door. I had to grab it. I think it's also important, just like some wisdom, if I could try to impart here for people that are watching that are younger than us. Like, you don't right now where you're at always feels final, or just what you can see in the near future. But your life's going to be so long. There's so much crazy shit you can do, and so many twists and directions and new opportunities that come. And I think what's most important is that you're trying to make something that you're proud of and something that you would enjoy. And then that will take you somewhere. You don't know where, And of course, I think also, and try to make sure that you're making a living doing it too. You're not giving it away. And that doesn't mean that you only care about money. That means that you're making sure that you're taking care of yourself and you're surviving through this endeavor. But yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to come. Some people start out doing, a certain type of stream and they turn into a completely different streamer, or people host certain things. They get other opportunities elsewhere. So I think it's most important that you're just focused on making something that you're proud of and putting it out there, and not always taking one specific goal and being like, I got to be that thing or that guy. Or you see somebody else with success. You're like, I want what they have, because you're never going to have exactly what they have because they're a different person. And just try to go from there.
Yeah, the grass is always greener.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned that before, and like with what you just said, Nate, for instance, maybe you have a giant Twitch following where you're casting a huge amount of people with the online community, but you're not getting live events. Well, a lot of those people that do all live events don't really have a Twitch community. And you can see them, for instance, right now, a lot of people are out of work and trying to stream, and they're streaming to very few people comparatively. So the grass is always greener, and I mean, you can build towards anything. You have to actually put in that specific effort to do that.
Yeah, nothing's going to just happen. Yeah. Nothing's just going to just happen. You need to go hard and work very hard at it and treat it like it's an entrepreneurship, like it's your business. Yeah.
Well, with all that being said, maybe we'll go on to the Patreon questions. Anything else, guys, before we head over there? No? All right.
No, I mean, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The Patreon questions. Guys, if you want to ask some questions of these guys about anything that you want at all, check out patreon.com/The Pylon Show. You still have a limited amount of time to drop a question in there while we start this off. So yeah, go do that. Here we go. And the first question, Tommy Balls asks,
nice.
A greasy wizard appears. Think Gandalf the
Greasy wizard?
Yes, greasy.
Yeah. Okay.
A greasy wizard appears.
This is an important part of the question.
I can't wait to see what type of shit is in here. Think Gandalf the Grey meets Nick Nolte's mugshot.
Wow. That actually paints the picture quite well.
It does. It does a great job. Yeah. With a moldy rotted staff in hand, he offers to give one player's ability trait, i.e. Beyond's micro, innovations macro, etc. But he has to take your right pinky. He can give you 2 of these, but he would also need your left big toe. What do you do?
You take it. What is this person fucking dumb? That's the easiest decision I've ever heard in my whole fucking life. I cut my pinky off right now for that. You don't need your right pinky to play StarCraft.
And you definitely don't need your left big toe.
Yeah.
Actually, big toes allow you to balance while you walk. The big toes
are pretty big.
I'll get over it.
Really big.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll manage.
Yeah, I'll get over it. You know what? I'm perfectly confident in my ability to walk around without a big toe. I'm pretty sure I can do that.
Yeah, you could. That's true.
Yeah. You might have a funny walk. Could you get a prosthetic toe? Is that a possibility here?
Yeah, he doesn't say
go Venom Snake.
Yeah, this is so easy, man.
Yeah.
He should have upped the ante like a kidney or a testicle, or what are you doing here?
God damn.
You know?
What?
Like, I get both, but I have to cut my nose off and look like a jack-o'-lantern. I mean, what the fuck are we doing here? And I can only stream my games, but with no mods in Twitch chat, so I just get verbally abused.
Damn, you're willing to give a lot.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, Tommy Balls, better luck next time. That was easy, apparently.
Fuck,
Yeah,
easy.
right, Tommy Balls. Maybe think,
Glad we got the
harder about
beginner
your
questions
question.
out of the way.
That's right. Maybe think harder about your question, less about what you appear like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. Paragleber asks, what are your long-term career plans? Do you think you can do esports for decades to come? Are you making enough money to retire at 50 or 60 and then have enough for the rest of your life? Or do you think you will have to work another job at some point? And if so, what job do you think you will do? So the long future, guys, not just 5 years from now, but later. Like, are you going to keep going? Do you think you can retire doing what you're doing? That type of thing.
Okay. It's so hard to. I don't think anyone can answer this question because you just don't know. But I'm going to say that my answer is I'm always hoping for the best and doing my best and working my hardest to make esports being a broadcaster for 50 or 60 until I'm 50 or 60 possible. But I do have a plan B, and that is to go back into becoming a developer of some variety because I still have those skills. So I'd be probably a web dev or something like that, something down that line. So that is my plan B. Do I see myself being a broadcaster 50, 60? It feels weird to be like a greasy wizard, think Gandalf the Grey mixed with Nick Nolte's mugshot, being next to a bunch of 20-year-old ex-pro gamers and broadcasting with them seems like the dichotomy would be pretty huge. but I would try. I definitely want to try, and I definitely want to be that guy because I just love it so much. But I think that I don't know if anyone actually has a plan to be 50 or 60 and they're like pretty confident that's going to happen. I don't know if anyone is what that person.
Okay.
Prove me wrong.
Okay. Nate, Nick, what do you guys think?
I think I can keep doing it. I mean, I think I've done well for myself. You know, in Korea, I see a lot of people that are going into their 50s that have worked in esports. I mean, esports has been out here for a very long time, so it's not a strange idea that you would keep doing it. I mean, the Korean casters, I think Dan and me are viewed as like, elders in the scene, but there's people way older than us working in esports in Korea. And there's a lot of infrastructure for it. I don't really have any intentions to leave here. I like living in Korea. Like I would probably want to live here even if I just had some other job that I like to do, but I enjoy this. I'm always, trying out different. I'm open to try different stuff, but yeah, I mean, I think I can. I mean, I don't think I'm gonna end up giving hand jobs at the bus stop or anything like that. If this all falls apart, I think I'm creative. I'm smart. I can do whatever. So, yeah,
we've always got the bus stop.
We've always got the bus stop. That's when after I
Damn.
disappear, you see me 3 years later. Taste, is that you? And I go, oh, and I run away.
Well, that's the good thing about being a esports professional.
Is that you, Taste is the great caster? And I'm just there with my one big arm running away from you. No, I think. I just want to enjoy my life and do cool shit, and this is what I'm doing now. And if this doesn't work out, I'll go do something else. But yeah, I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't work. I mean, the fact that Dan and me have been doing this for 10 years, GSL now longest esports show, and I get offers. Dan gets offers, to do other stuff. So it's not like we're stuck. But again, we're in Korea.
What about you, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went into it a little bit earlier, but I have as far as aspirations go, sports. I think I've had enough conversations behind the scenes with different companies to know that it's something that is going to become more and more closely intertwined, our space and like regular sports and all of that. I want to be on like a managing side for one of these companies down the line. Like for me, that would be like a really cool end game. I think about that a lot. If I can keep doing commentary and keep working my way up that ladder, I'm super interested in that. I don't think that I don't think that I'm personally like willing enough to harass and bother people to the degree that you need to get gigs in this industry, that I'm gonna overcome some of these other people that are, that they probably want it more than me, honestly. But yeah, I mean, I'm just trying. I plan around what I hope is going to happen, and if things don't work out, things don't work out.
All right.
It's always the bus stop.
It's always the bus stop.
You always
Hey,
got that
I don't
you can
plan
hang
my
on
life
to.
around things not going right. You know that's about
Yeah.
it.
For me, I think like I'm not planning on leaving the industry or doing anything else in particular. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm a person that could make a hard right turn and go do something completely different and new if I felt like it. Currently, I definitely don't feel like that. I think I'll be in this industry basically forever. That being said, like I feel like there's still a lot of room for my own growth. I mean, if you have twitter.com installed, then you probably read people all the time that think that they know everything about esports. But even though I've been in esports for fucking ever at this point, uh, like I still feel like I'm learning a lot, and I have a lot more left to learn. And yeah, as that occurs, I still feel like I'm kind of growing and enjoying it, and I'm gonna figure things out, and eventually, I don't think I'll ever want to like 100% retire from it, anyways, because this is just kind of my passion that I love to do, anyways. But yeah, I still don't feel like I'm at like the end of my career or even necessarily the middle of my career. So as I continue to learn, I'll figure it out. Figure it out. All right, thank you for the question, Paraglider. All right, Hyper Turtle asks, movies are a popular conversation topic during early game. Do you ever get to catch movies together when you're in town for an event? Do you end up commentating the film, or is it a good time to relax and give the chatter a rest?
Okay, first of all,
if you're talking during a film, shut the fuck up.
first of all, I'm never gonna go to an event and go to a fucking movie. Although Todd does that, right?
Everybody does that, Tasteless, except for you.
Yeah,
and
you
I.
guys are fucking
Yeah.
crazy, man. I'm not gonna go to a fucking movie in a foreign country. No.
This was Jeff's big thing, was when
I
fucking
know.
everyone BlizzCon, and then me and Tasteless were like, hey, are we gonna like go to Bubba Gump Shrimp? And everyone's like, oh, we're gonna go watch the Avengers or some
Yeah,
shit.
we're gonna go sit in the dark
Yeah.
together and do something we could do by ourselves. Like now, Artosis and I, when we've been to events, we will occasionally go to one of our hotel rooms and we'll turn on the TV. And I do like watching just any random TV show with Dan and talking shit on it. That's fun.
I went to the cinema with the guys one time. Oh my god, the dog. Yes, please.
Sorry, he's anxious. I've been gone for too long.
Father, get off the computer and walk me, please.
Exactly what he's saying. Exactly what he's saying. It's time to throw the ball.
I actually, by the way, I have a very low tolerance for even going to movies. I find I don't have the patience for most of them. If a good movie comes out, I'll prefer to watch it at home. So if I decide I really don't like it, I can just turn it off.
I'm mainly with you, but I do like that. There have been some movies, like for instance, the Marvel movies. I have actually gone in to watch those movies as just a spectacle, knowing that it's not going to be like the greatest well-written thing in the whole world. It's not going to be poetry. It's going to be a special effects extravaganza. I like to go in cinemas as like an event, like going with the popcorn. I like the idea of having a popcorn, sitting there and having a drink and just having a whole event. But to the esports events, I've been one time. Last time I went was when John Wick 2 came out. I think you went as well, Dan, and we were just making fun of the fact that like that subway battle where they're like shooting each other. That
was so funny. Oh my god.
But that was the one time we went and saw like in Poland. But I'm with Tasteless. Like, I would much rather hang out doing something where we can talk to each other rather than sit there quietly and watch a movie. Because if you're talking in a cinema, then you're kind of being a jerk.
Yeah.
But
I am a fan of watching bad movies on TV with friends and just talking during them and making jokes.
Oh yeah.
That's
cinema
great.
is a different thing. You don't talk at the cinema. Yeah,
definitely agree with that. All right,
Nick, when are we gonna have our Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus watch party? You know what I'm saying?
Dude, can we do that on Twitch? Is that possible?
Actually,
you can have viewing parties. Yeah, you can.
It depends.
You can't put the movie on your stream, but you can stream your reaction to the movie live and time it out so that people can like watch with you.
I thought that you.
As the expert in that area, let me tell you about putting a clock up there so that matches the playtime of whatever it is that you're watching.
All right. Thank you, Hyper Turtle, for the question. Train-Call asks, name 3 games that you enjoy most outside of the RTS genre.
Genres or games? I guess you said games.
3 games, but they can't be RTSs. What are 3 games that you enjoy the most that are not RTS games? I like Breath of the Wild, although I've basically completed the game completely. There's like fucking a few seed guys left to get or something.
Which is
But I
just the
love
best
that. I
part.
play that so much. Slime Rancher is my current thing that I'm so into. I play so much fucking Slime Rancher. I am a god at Slime Rancher. It's crazy. Why
Wow.
isn't there Slime Rancher esports? You should see the fucking amount of drones I have around. I have maximum drones. It's crazy. They're just everywhere, flying around, fucking ranching my slimes.
I did not expect that.
Nice.
And yeah, no, I don't know. I'm super into it right now. I don't play anything else right now. Those are really. I know everything about turnip prices though, because my wife is really.
Oh
into,
yeah, hell
really
yeah.
into that. Oh, I don't like it.
I really
Right.
like. I really like at the moment streaming Doom Eternal sometimes. I like it enough to stream it alongside of my StarCraft streams every now and then. Like just turn it on and do a run every now and then in Doom Eternal. I fucking love that game. It just feels so fun to play, and it just feels like mechanically such a great time. And I like the music because I'm a metalhead. So
You're good. I was
like,
watching you try to do some speed runs the other day. Actually, it was fucking. You're
yeah,
sick.
yeah. I'm getting better, but still like chasing that. Feels like I'm chasing the dragon, man. Like it is such a hard task to be one of these 6 or 7 people in the whole world that have done what I'm trying to do. But I'm trying because I just feel literally motivated for it because it's just so fun of a grind. But the other thing is Dark Souls. Like Souls games are so cool for me. Like I just love any game that is mechanically satisfying. Where if I die over and over again, it doesn't bother me because I'm happy to play it more. You know what I mean? It's very similar to StarCraft in that regard, and that is like it's a massive challenge. But the mechanics of actually going through the actions of playing the game is so fun that I don't care when I die. I'm just like, oh well, that's fine. Maybe I need to take a break at the worst case scenario, but I'll always be back. Always be back. You know, trying again.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, and XCOM games. I like XCOM. That's not RTS. It's turn based.
They put X. I just saw XCOM 2 collection is on the Switch now as well.
It runs badly from what I've seen, but
I imagine it runs terribly, but yeah, it's there.
It doesn't look great. But yeah, if you want XCOM 2 on the go, man, Switch, go for it. It's just such a fucking fun game. It's so satisfying when you succeed.
Cool. What about you guys? What's your 3 games? That you like?
I actually like Maynard. I'm a huge Souls fan. Dark Souls, Bloodborne. I'm actually playing through Sekiro right now. So I love those kind of games. Growing up as a kid, I played a lot of these point and click graphic adventure games. And I usually play that like in the hour before I go to bed. I play that on night mode on my PC, but I love those point and click adventure games. I'm actually playing through Disco Elysium right now, which I'm really enjoying. The
I finished
detective
that one.
RPG. Yeah, I'm really that's quite a unique experience. So I'm having a good time with that. I like a lot of different kinds of games. I'm kind of down for whatever. But yeah, I guess other classic platformers too. Oh, and survival horror games I'm a big fan of. I intend to stream some of that down the road. I just beat Alien Isolation, which was I mean, that's a great game.
I need to know when the Tasteless Resident Evil stream's happening. I want to be there for that.
Should I do Resident Evil 3 or should I wait for a new survival horror game to come out?
I think
yeah,
3.
the Resident Evil 3 remake is. I mean, honestly,
that's what I hear. I'll
grab
probably
a couple
play it on
beers
my
and
own,
play
but
it yourself and do it all in one night because it's a very short game.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm waiting for the next
now.
big...
You would be done for dinner.
Oh, really? Okay. I don't know if I'm gonna. Maybe I will. I don't.
It's not
we'll
bad,
see.
but they phoned it in, so yeah.
Yeah, I might just try streaming that, but eventually I want to get into some super hardcore scary games.
Nice. I'll tune in for that.
Lately, I've just been playing Warzone, COD Warzone. That's like the only thing I can play with my brothers because they're console gamers and stuff, and it's pretty good actually. Between that, I've been trying to mute this one. He's been barking, but between that, playing a lot of Madden. I'm hoping to try and play in some tournaments and stuff next year. I'm actually kind of excited about that. I've been grinding it a lot off stream, and that and yeah, probably just like playing random games like Resident Evil, GTA Online. Yeah, just whatever's on. I kind of try to everything.
Cool. Thank you for the question, Tranquil. Pulse Reaction asks, Artosis, you mentioned on your stream how the BM in Brood War against Protoss might have poisoned the minds of StarCraft 2 players, leading them to always consider Protoss overpowered. What do you think leads to that? Do you think there's a design solution Blizz can take? Or is it a mainly community-related issue? I was mentioning on stream because actually Tasteless talks about this a lot with me when we're at work and stuff about how probably it's poisoned from the hatred of StarCraft 1 Protoss. It probably did not help StarCraft 2 Protoss with the amount of nerfs that they've gotten and everything. What do you guys think about this?
Well, I think it was mostly you and Hydra that had the real hatred for StarCraft 1 Protoss, and you guys were the major figures, and that like proliferated this everywhere, right? Because you guys are so influential.
It's my fault, Tate.
Yeah, it's your fault. Yeah, it actually is. If you want to know the actual answer to the question, it's your
I hope
attitude.
that I have that type of power. I hope you're right.
You do. So it's mostly from you. Then it came into StarCraft 2, but you weren't playing Protoss, but you had your Protoss hatred in the cast. And then everybody who wants to be part of the meme, because memeing is mostly just repeating what other people say. Then they're repeating it, and then maybe Blizzard's not too attuned to what's going on. They're like, yeah, I guess Protoss is OP. And then, I think it definitely plays a role because Zerg's won so much. If you just look at, most of the recent history of StarCraft 2, it's like, well, Zerg's just a very strong race. It's not unbeatable, and I think at times it's not OP, but I think Protoss, because of stuff that you don't even oftentimes see in pro matches, like you don't oftentimes see cannon rushes, you don't oftentimes see people just make a pylon in your base and warp stuff in. I think the stigma's there, but I think there's stuff like that with all the races and all the matchups.
I actually think like for the casual fan of StarCraft, like obviously jumping into a meme is probably the reason. Let's be real, like that's the reason why people are jumping on board because of Lel Protoss XD. But the real thing I think for like a casual player of the game is that maybe just Protoss has a few things in StarCraft 1 and 2 that feel like a little bit bullshit. Like they feel like kind of just game ending, like an offensive recall from an Arbiter in StarCraft 1, DTs in your mineral line in StarCraft 1 and 2, warp prisms in StarCraft 2 feel bullshit sometimes, even though they are, people can deal with them for sure. It just feels like that for a casual player, and it's something that's like effective all the way up to the higher levels of the game. But every race, like Tasteless mentions, every race has got something that feels stupid good. Like a vulture, 75 minerals. It's got spider mines. They build in -1 second, and they're essentially free. That's there's another thing.
Yeah,
that,
there's that.
Not fan players will be saying.
Yeah, at least from the SC2 side, I think the really poor design initially of Protoss and like Wings of Liberty really also hurt a lot. Because not only is Protoss like, oh yeah, you've got the cool lasers and shit, but they suffered the most from this, the whole death ball thing because like before they added the mothership core and like put recall in, like you couldn't actually move out on the map if you weren't 100% certain that you could either get home or win the game with that push, right? Because you had the big slow clunky army. But then on the other side, if you were watching early StarCraft tournaments, like you'd watch like a TVT, right? My mind would go to, I don't know, something like you've got like guys like Box or whatever playing SC2 in the early days. And these games are getting crazy with nukes and battle cruisers and nobody knows what the hell's going on. And TVZ was kind of crazy. ZVZ was like this explosive Ling Bane fight. You could at least really clearly see that micro. But then you're like, no, the entirety of like the first year of like StarCraft 2 PvP wise, you're watching two people do the exact same thing literally every single game. Like it was just like this 4-gate stuff. Yeah. And 99% of the time, if someone tried anything else, you didn't even need to like be a high level player. You just look at it and be like, well, he's probably just going to die because there's going to be too many units because he's going to put this pylon on the bottom of the ramp and then warp stuff up top. So then there's just like nothing you can do about it, right? So like watching those, I think definitely also really hurts it because it kind of put that idea in people's heads of like, oh yeah, you just do this one thing because there's nothing else. Like this one build, that's it, right? It's so boring, right? It's so easy. A caveman could do it or whatever, defunct saying now that you would apply to that. But that and like Voideries charging up on rocks, like there was definitely a lot of silly stuff back then, which is gone now. But like I think that also put a stain on it because there are a lot of very vocal community people that were also just like talk down on Protoss because of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that Protoss does are just frustrating for people, right? It's like, remember Force Field at the beginning of StarCraft 2? Like that's just a frustrating thing. It's like editing the map so your army can't do anything. What the fuck? And then like it's the race that has like the highest supply units and most expensive units, right? So it's like you fight the Immortal, you're like, this thing won't die. It won't die. That's frustrating, right? But they need to have that because that's what that's what the fucking race design is. I think the race design and the warpins, of course, like you were just talking about, Nate. It's like these are just frustrating things to play against. And so, I mean, you even saw it in the recent patch that I talked a lot of shit about that observer change, where literally in the notes we're like, we can see the frustration of Terran players when they scan and they can't get the observer, so we're making it slower. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? People are frustrated when they scan that they don't kill the fucking 75 gas unit that comes out of the robo, and so you're gonna nerf it?
Yeah.
Like,
of all the things to complain about, actually, something like that, I'm like, what else frustrates you? You know, like when it's cold in the winter. I mean, what the fuck, man?
God, I mean, I think that there's frustration of playing against Protoss because we know they're not getting nerfed for winning championships. We fucking know that. Okay, that's the one thing we do know.
You know what?
Whereas I think if you look at Zerg, for instance, a lot of their stuff is just really good and robust. It doesn't have like a gimmicky trick with it. Yeah. It's like, no, Ravagers are actually just very good. Roaches are very strong early. Lings are very fast. Banelings are very strong. You know, you could pretty much go down all the Zerg units and be like, oh, they're so good for all these basic reasons that are not a novelty. They're not an ability or anything like that. It's just there. But I think it's not as easy to complain about that. Excuse me.
Yeah. Well, I hope that answered your question's pulse reaction. Okay, next question. Aaron McLeod asks, Tasteless and Artosis, you guys have often talked about retro games during the start of a game. If you guys were to play Battletoads, who would be the better player?
I still never beat that fucking game. I don't know, man.
I was actually playing it recently because for my birthday, my wife got me an Xbox One, and it came with this disc that like has old games on it. So I was like, "Oh, Battletoads. Okay, let's give this shit a try." Oh my god, it's so hard. Tasteless is definitely better than me at Battletoads.
What's crazy is like I've beaten all the Souls games. Yeah, I mean I feel like I'm someone who should be good enough to do it. I never ended up beating it. I'll probably eventually go back and beat it. But yeah, that was it's so hard.
NES games were especially bullshit though, because the games were so short that they made them incredibly hard so that you had to keep iterating.
But have you played Battletoads? I mean, it's actually like it's over the top.
So bad. The controls are so wretched. It doesn't.
You actually need to fail a fuckload to have any chance of finishing. Like, remember that there's that level that usually stops people from playing the game where you have like a speeder and you need to dodge things that are coming off the side of the screen.
Yeah.
And if you hit it, it's just game over. Like, it's just a one-hit kill. And it's like, you just need to have the muscle memory of the pattern of that thing. You can't even react to it. It's too fast to react to. You actually just have to have the muscle memory. So
you have to memorize it.
It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Thank you for the question, Aaron McLeod. Zip asks, my group, SC Tuesdays, plays StarCraft 2 at a bar every week, and I've often wondered what the other patrons think of us shouting out about roaches, stalkers, creep, etc. Have any of you had strange encounters due to using StarCraft lingo or gaming lingo in general? Love to you all. Yes. So the lingo within StarCraft used to be much more vulgar, words that we do not really use as much anymore. And so there have been times where I was like speaking in a restaurant to like another StarCraft player, like way back. And it would just be like, yeah, I don't know. Talking about how badly someone got destroyed, but with like more vulgar, oh yeah, you got fucking wrecked or something. And then people like, excuse me. And I'm like, oh, shit, sorry. Oh, sorry. That type of thing.
I've had I've had a weird moment where like actually it's something I've adopted is like just talking about my day and my plan for the day as a build, like or talking about like a trip. like it happens all the time. I'll say it to wife now. It'll just be like, she'd be like, oh, what's happening today? And I'll be like, oh, well, the build is, we jump in the car at 11, go get lunch, and then hit wherever at like 1 p.m. and just have that as like something that just snuck in there by just not even realizing it. And there's also one embarrassing moment where I was at a doctor, and they told me I had a negative result for something, which is always good when you go to a doctor to have a negative result. And I accidentally said poggers. Like they were like, oh, the results come out as negative. I'm like, oh, poggers. And they're like, what? I'm like, oh, never mind, great. And I'm just like, oh gosh, been on the internet too much.
I feel like I'm always using those terms all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many I couldn't even name. But yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I've had it cause a weird situation, but yeah.
Yeah. I guess also being out in Korea now, I'm like, I'm probably not going to say some memey thing that a Korean's going to be like, what? Or I get it. You know what I mean? So I don't. Yeah.
All right, thanks for the question. Will Baber asks, I listen to this show and love it. However, with my limited time, it is easy to keep listening to the Pylon show while losing track of where to view tournaments since WCS went dark. What platforms are the biggest, are the bigger / ESL tournaments on now? I know it's a basic question, but I only know where GSL is. That's all you need, my man.
He is actually the exact opposite of everyone else that I speak to, where they only watch Twitch and they're like, "Where's GSL?" And that's because I'm obviously, when I talk to people, it's usually in my Twitch chat. But the bigger / ESL tournaments are everywhere at the moment because there hasn't been a DreamHack Masters event, which is what the new WCS stops are called now, since I Am Katowice, which was on Twitch. And even then, I think the DreamHack Masters event will not be on the same channel as what I Am Katowice was on, because that was an ESL channel, and DreamHack will probably be on DreamHack StarCraft maybe, or something like that. It'll be on Twitch. My advice is always just to go to Team Liquid, have an account there, or even just have it as a homepage and have the events page or the calendar ready and clickable, because it is just the best place to find what's coming up in StarCraft.
Yeah. And I mean, you can always check the show notes. We have links to where a lot of things are being streamed. There's a lot of smaller things going on where casters like Wardy, Cranky Ducklings, Creighton, Maynard, lots of people are doing casting. So it is kind of spread out all over the place. Or check out sc2links.com if you want to check out VODs. All right. Thanks for the question. Hope that helps. Fridge Raider asks, when is Tasteless coming back to the Pylon show? What goal do we need to hit this time? Joke questions aside, what moment in StarCraft would make for a good bedtime story for a kid to listen to?
I'm sorry, a StarCraft bedtime story?
Yeah, like what moment in StarCraft would make a good bedtime story for a child?
I mean, fruit dealer, right?
That was a good one.
The story of the guy who sold fruit on the street and was taking care of his parents who were ill, and then became the first Zerg champion in the first StarCraft 2 tournament. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a real Cinderella story. None of the other Zergs are doing well too. He was the only Zerg, really.
His Zerg was underpowered at the time.
Yeah.
You
But
can always
actually,
take it the other way.
Zerg will never lose a game for the rest of time. Infestor was broken back then. Broken. Sick broken.
I would tell the story of Bjorn, which seems like not an amazing story if you just talk about what happened, but you could dress it up with some fancy language. Be like one man against an entire corporate team and fighting the odds and then becoming a world champion even after that GSL. It's a pretty cool story. It's like the power of one sort of thing.
I'll try these with my kids and see if they look at me funny or not. All right. Refrigerator, thank you for the question. Red Gunner Guy asks, just started casting. What advice you have co-casting versus solo casting? Advice when co-casting with inexperienced casters. We do community casting, letting anyone try it out. Mr. Artosis, where did you get the shirt worn at the Hearthstone Championship, the red one? What happened to it thereafter? Nate? How dog? They have limited characters, so he's obviously Nate. How is your dog in reverse order?
Dog is Lou is fantastic. He's got a lot of energy. That's what we've been working on lately. I take him out in the mornings. We think like this apartment, we have like a little space to bring the dog where you can take him off the leash, which has actually been really nice. So I just throw a ball while I basically drink coffee and look at my phone, and he goes 3,000 miles an hour. Yeah, he's great. He's fantastic. He's got some separation anxiety because we've been stuck together. We haven't actually been able to go or do anything. So he's very used to having us around, but he's great. He's a lovely boy.
Great. He's a cutie. The shirt worn at the Hearthstone Championship, the red one, that was a jacket from TT Esports. They were one of my sponsors at the time. It's in my closet. Actually, I kept it. Yeah. Okay. So advice for co-casting versus solo casting, and advice when co-casting with inexperienced casters.
Try not to make an inexperienced caster look bad. Lack of experience usually means they're going to be nervous or uncomfortable. Try to make them look good, and don't shut them down. Don't gobble up all the information. Don't throw them a hardball question they might not know. You know what I mean? Try to always have the conversation be one that's expanding and growing.
I tell every inexperienced caster the same thing when I cast with them, basically, where it's like, listen, I'm going to drive everything. You don't worry about anything. All you're going to do is have a conversation with me about StarCraft. That's it. That is the only thing you need to do. That's the only thing you need to focus on. You and I are just going to talk about StarCraft. That's it. Really, literally, that's what commentary is anyway. I'll take care of all the little ins and outs of throwing the graphics and starting the game and shit. Just talk to me about StarCraft.
I mean, that is essentially what you did for me, actually, back in, like, you might not even remember, way back in 2012, where you came to Australia and we met for the first time. I had like 2 casts that whole event. Like, I was initially hired as a commentator, and then they were like, "Oh no, you're stage host now," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So that changed, but I really wanted to be there as a commentator. So I did a couple of co-casts with, like, the internationals, and I had one with you, Dan, and you were just like, "Oh." I was like, "Oh, I'm really happy to blah, blah, blah." And you're like, "Oh, just chill. We're just going to have a conversation about StarCraft. We're just going to..."
Hey, look at that. I told the truth.
Yeah, it's true. And it ended up being one of my better ones at the time. Like, it just felt... It always feels like when you're with an experienced commentator that is confident, the co-caster is there pretty much as, like, filling in between the lines kind of thing. But the experienced caster is the one that's painting the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So they're quite good at that, usually. For co-casting versus solo casting, if you're a solo caster, I would say that you just know what you're talking about. It's kind of hard to give solo casting advice because it relies on your ability to have the energy to be able to cast for that long by yourself, which is not something that everyone has, and you don't know you have it till you try. If you're a solo caster that has very little game knowledge, that's going to be rough as well, because you're not going to be telling anyone anything. You're just basically going to be reading the production tab out. So you're not going to give anyone any information, kind of, really, that they're not already seeing, which is also kind of weird. But then when you're co-casting with someone, everything that Nick just said, I think I'll just reiterate, where you just give people space, be aware of how much you're talking, and how how dead the air can be, and when you're being thrown to, and when to throw stuff that you kind of really learn by experience.
Cool. Good answers. All right. Thanks, Red Gunner Guy. I hope that helps. Nahyan asks, tell us something about streaming StarCraft that makes your brain cells decompose at an alarming rate. Like something stupid or annoying. Oh, I'm sure everyone has some of these. I'll start.
That's sorry. you go ahead.
People suggest, it's become a meme now, so people are doing it just to get me riled up. But for a while there, people were really suggesting that I really should use ghosts to stop our arbiters, which was hilarious. And the new thing that pops up every now and then, there will be someone, pop in. And the thing is, I can check how many messages you've fucking sent in my thing. So if you sent 2 messages, and one of them is, I think Artosis needs to fucking scout more or something. It's like, people who tell me that I should have scouted whatever the fuck it was when it's well hidden, or something like that. Like, I had some guy the other day, he's like, why does Artosis never take third bases? And it was right after a game where I took my third at 7 minutes, which is as quick as you can take it in any matchup. So I was like, whoa, you're killing me.
I think for me, it's people that are stating something that is clearly common to do in StarCraft 2, and they're telling me to do it in StarCraft 1. Like, people are telling me to do Archon drops against Zerg, and that's literally not a thing at all. That's not a fucking thing. Like, you're fucking,
really?
like, if you think you should Archon drop people, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, you don't have to talk. You don't have to say something. If you don't know, you don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
that is
no one's making you
advice.
type this to me. You know what I mean? And it's just if you don't know, you can ask. You can be quiet.
Yeah.
But when you're like, clearly you didn't Archon drop enough, and I'm like, whoa. I mean, just for me with that, it's like, okay, you're just not. And this, I believe, was not a joke. I almost went off on the guy and I was like, I'm not gonna. I'll bring this up later because it's just too funny. But yeah, I think just stuff like that where I just find in general on the internet, people just say shit. Everyone just is not informed and just saying stuff, and then other people are repeating it, and it just makes me crazy. So,
yeah. I'll reiterate that it's one of the most frustrating things with any chat, including my own, is when someone says something like it's just like they just say something like it's a fact.
Yes,
and I'm like, you actually have no evidence for this, and I'll bring it up and I'll say stuff like, you could add, in my opinion, to the front of that, and all of a sudden we don't have a problem.
Or what do you think about?
Or what do you think about if it, you know,
then you
wouldn't have a problem
necessarily.
Yeah. But when you state something like it's a fact, sure, not many people will give a shit, but I give a shit. I feel like it's, you know, I try to carry myself online like I would in person. And if I'm gonna say something, it's I want to make sure that I'm correct when I say it for the most part. Because looking dumb is something that I also try to not do online as well as in person. I try hard not to, but yeah, happens sometimes for the best of us. What are you gonna do?
What really grinds my gears, and I'm sure you guys have all had this, is the person who shows up like halfway through or like towards the end of the game, and then like comes in with like you just an example. I had a game the other day, like some guy, like, I open reactor Hellions versus Zerg. They do like a roach ravager bust. He kills most of my workers. My battle cruiser kills most of his. Like the game's completely shot, but like kind of ends up normalizing somewhat. And then I'm at like the 16-minute mark trying to get my third base landed because of how like messed up the whole thing has been. Some guy's like, dude, I really feel like you should be getting your third base a lot sooner than 16 minutes. Jesus, Nate. And I'm like, what the?
Yeah.
I'm like, did you even watch the fucking game? Like, do you have any idea what's been going on this whole entire time? And he's like, oh no, I just got here. Don't be a dick. I'm like, do you just walk into the middle of a party and be like, dude, what the hell happened to the chips, man? What's fucking wrong with you guys? Did nobody decide to play Carly Rae Jepsen? It's like, well, no, actually, she played her set while you were, coming in an hour late. And I'm like, holy shit. That's exactly it. It's the matter of factly way that someone's like, dude, you really don't need to have 3 bunkers at your natural. I'm like, do you know what the fuck happened in the first 6 minutes of this game? You have any idea? No? Okay, good. Glad. Let's move on.
God, fight the good fight.
Totally. You summed that up perfectly, Nate. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Nahyun. All right, Shampoo McTavish asks, in a recent TL poll, 85% plus said that good casting is important / very important when watching StarCraft. My impression is that commentators are not as important in traditional sports. Lots of people actually mute them. Why is casting such an important part of the StarCraft viewing experience compared to other sports?
I think it's because StarCraft is a game. I think this is also true for some other esports as well. But StarCraft is a game that actually requires a lot of narration to follow. It's not as straightforward. It's not like a discus competition, where I don't need them talking to follow it. If you know the rules of, let's say, American football, that's an easy one for us. If we know the rules of that, a lot of the commentary there, first of all, is statistical filler. So they literally have statisticians running around handing them, because there's not a whole lot to say in football, for instance, American football. Not a lot in soccer. You guys know what I'm talking about. Football. But there's not as much to say, so they're actually trying to generate stuff to fill. Where StarCraft, we're watching 2 players move around the map. One player is maybe trying to trick the other one or surprise the other one. They can't see what each other is seeing, and so we have to constantly remark on that to carry it forward. So, and this is also true when they started doing it in Korea. It was once commentary got involved in Korean StarCraft, it got huge on TV.
And I'll say this. I think another big advantage that esports titles have, especially, is that we are all people who got into where we are by being a part of the game. And for professional sports, there's a massive disconnect. And actually, when you talk about people muting, a lot of people really don't like a lot of the current like commentators for like the NFL. Like the guys at ESPN, like Booger, like these guys have no idea what they're saying 99% of the time. Like a lot of the jobs are like, you get in through a friend of somebody. And some of the people who are former players were good, but then you've still got like Troy Aikman commentating. I don't know if he's like 70 or some shit now, but like they don't have anything insightful to really say. Guys like Joe Buck, like I wouldn't listen to that guy talk about a football game ever. But there are like there's the youngest guy that basically got into it that was good was like Tony Romo, and almost everybody that I've spoken to is like if he's commentating or calling a game, you listen because he actually says really insightful stuff. He appears to be like one of those people that's like following it enough that he can actually break down a play like quickly and briefly, like in the 3 or 4 seconds before the snap, give you an expectation, and then like you get the satisfying result of like, oh yeah, no, what he was talking about is like pretty good actually. So I think it has a lot to do with that too. Like traditional broadcasting, I think traditional entertainment in general, which is like a big part of the shakeup of like the internet being such a big thing now, but it's a lot of like nepotism, like handed down jobs that people maybe earned a long time ago, but at some point, like they just kind of just say, you can tell that a lot of people phone it in.
One final thing is that I also think another thing that we could say is pretty much not, you can't really argue it, is that also esports broadcasts are generally more relaxed. There are some esports broadcasts that try to be very ESPN, but that's like they try, and I feel like as an esport fan, you don't want that. Like you think you want it, and then you watch it, and you're like, this isn't as fun as like when they were in t-shirts and just hanging out at the panel. Like for instance, I Am Katowice, when we all just got to wear t-shirts and we were all just like talking to each other and making jokes and making fun and all this stuff. That stuff you really can't. You can kind of do a little bit at like the highest level of regular legacy media sports, but you like in esports, you really can just have a lot of freedom to be yourself. I feel
also a lot of legacy media people are fucking not funny at all.
Yeah, that's also
true. You
true.
watch some of the stuff that they're trying to be, it's like, whoo, this is comedy cemetery right here. Like this is some real like, fucking like, don't ever try to be funny like that ever again. It can be really where I feel like StarCraft, there's a lot more people that have a sense of humor. And I mean, if you look at most Twitch chats and gaming culture, it's a lot more hip. It's people are more fun.
Yeah, we're hip. That's how I would describe it.
We are
really
so
hip.
fucking hip. We are so cool. Have you seen that skateboard in Artosis's stream? Do you know how cool we are? All right.
Dude, I got a skateboard right there. I got a guitar over there, man.
Right. He's like, man, I lost to Protoss all day today. I better tic tac down to the skate park and pop some ollies and figure out how to stop you probably got a Toys R Us that has no marks on the wheels.
Well, me personally, Tasteless, I just find as a hip Terran player, I'm sick of these jive ass Protoss turkeys coming in.
I think we have more fun. I think esports is cooler, and it's not tethered to a lot of the more conventional stuff that also a lot of just mainstream TV. Like Dan and I, we opened for ESPN for Heroes of the Storm, and like they had this guy who was trying to write all these jokes for us. And I mean, I'm looking at these jokes, I'm like, I'm not going to say this, man. This isn't funny. Like this, I'm not. You just let us talk. I can't
even imagine how terrifying that is. I've never had that before. I can't even imagine how to like having someone tell you to do this joke. I'm like, oh god.
Jokes, but yeah, this guy came in here and he had these. I've written this thing out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to rewrite this and then kind of not use it. But yeah,
yeah. I think we don't take ourselves that seriously in esports for the most part, which is really important.
Very important.
And we have a little bit more leeway, right? Like everyone in the fucking world probably wants to be a football commentator, and everyone knows how to play football. So there's some reality to that. Whereas here, we can fuck around a little bit more and find a nice groove.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the question. The answers. Optional player asks, there's a handful of RTS games where there are land, air, and sea units, i.e. Red Alert, Supreme Commander. StarCraft doesn't feature all three. Anyway, what are your opinions of the Oxford comma for or against? Fight amongst yourselves. Peace, love, and death metal.
I'm not intelligent enough to answer this question, Pat.
What's an Oxford comma?
My answer is
I think
yes.
that's the Oxford. There's a book for like grammar, right? Somebody check that out.
Is the Oxford comma?
Isn't there a grammar book from Oxford or something that's used?
Penultimate item in a list of 3 or more items.
Oh yeah,
he does it at the end of the question. The
Oxford comma. No, I use
comma.
What about you guys?
I use the Oxford comma. Yeah, me too.
Nate, Oxford comma, yes, no?
I don't know. That just sounds like the kind of thing if I remember to do it or not.
Look, I think that people
You
that don't use
remember
the
to
Oxford
do it
comma
or
are
not?
subhumans. I think you're
I
a
don't know,
subhuman
man.
if
I
you
don't
don't
think
use
about.
the comma.
I don't. How often am I writing down lists, man? I don't know. That shit never happens.
Damn.
I talk. Almost all of the communication in my life is through talking. I don't spend a whole
Tell
lot
you
of
what, man.
time
When I
writing letters
talk,
to
I use
people.
the Oxford comma too. All right, you hear it all the time when I'm casting.
You took the main, the third, and the
Yeah.
natural.
That's all right.
yeah, exactly.
I love it. All right. Thank you, optional player, for the insightful question there. Okay, Kilo asks, if you could host a 4-player invitation with any player, past or present, what 4 players would you choose? Also, would an event where 2 players play on an older map pool be interesting or no? Hope you are all staying safe. 4-player invitational. Well, my 4-player invitational would be a 2-player invitational. It would be Maru and Cyril. We finally fucking get them to play. That would be amazing. I personally don't like older maps because if the map is not current and important, then the game is not going to be that high quality on it. So, not super interesting.
Yeah,
The game's been tuned a lot for these maps that we have nowadays, especially with like Liberators and stuff, right?
Yeah, that last part is something that I think could be cool. Like my initial gut reaction was, "Oh yeah, I'd watch that," and then I feel like I'd watch it for a bit and go, "Ooh, this map's bad," because a lot of the older maps were just really bad.
Yeah, people can nostalgia trip and then not appreciate like, oh, that was a different time.
Yeah, like Command and Conquer.
It really
Remastered.
wasn't that good.
Yeah, like Command and Conquer. Nick, have you tried it yet?
I did. I'm having fun on the single player. Yeah.
Nate, did you try it?
No, I haven't. I downloaded it and set it up. I just haven't jumped in it
What
yet.
you got to appreciate with Command and Conquer is that each of the single player levels is like a little puzzle.
Yeah.
It's not a macro RTS game. You don't have a bunch of SCVs sucking up minerals, but if you just approach each campaign like it's a puzzle, and it basically is. It's actually a very well designed single player, to be honest. It's just you have to know exactly where to send what, and each time you progress, you go back a little bit further. So I'm having a good time.
My favorite part of that puzzle is
kills your whole army.
Yeah, no.
Oh, that's been the story of my life, man.
Or when that puzzle all of a sudden is like, okay, now you have flamethrower troopers and they can kill you, they can kill your enemy and also your own units in about 0.5 of a second.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
also this harvester.
Yeah, dude, it's a flamethrower. You can't just spray that shit everywhere.
Yeah,
you can't just spray a flamethrower everywhere, man.
Meanwhile,
we're gonna have a match, right? On Command and Conquer. Are we gonna? You asked me on Instagram if we're gonna play Command and Conquer together. Are we gonna do it?
That'd be fun. Yo, I'll put a little time into that. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds really good.
All right.
Even if it's just a meme shit show, that sounds fantastic.
That's fine with me, man.
There you go. You guys have any players you'd add for the invitational part of the question?
No, I don't know how many good ones, to be honest. No, it'd be cool. I got to see all the old time players come. It'd be cool to have MVP and ST or something like that. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know, man. I'm very. I have a lot of recency bias, so I can't really like get a greatest 4 of all time for me because right now my top 4 is different. And the top 4 that I want happens a lot. You know, like for instance, TY and Dark are 2 people that I would invite. I would love to watch them play in an invitational. Maru, Cyril, etc. Like obviously Maru and Cyril doesn't happen, but Maru and Cyril playing games does happen. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a good answer, I feel.
All right. Thank you for the question, Kilo. Black Fost asks, get your boats ready. Tasteless has arrived. Thank you very much for this really special episode. What do you guys think is a very common but heavily underestimated and or still well hidden mistake StarCraft 2 and or Brood War players do, which should be fixed through training? Perhaps how?
Underestimated mistakes that players make. My favorite to point out is even at the very highest level. If you look through VODs, and I haven't done a check super recently, but my favorite thing to do is go through on stream like a big GSL final with a pro Terran and point out how many times they use like the supply call down right because they got blocked and stuff like that. It's the kind of thing that you don't really hear a whole lot about, but it's used almost every single game without fail by even the top players in those matches because of just how fast it is. Like it's even those guys like Innovation when he was at his macro prime. I love just going to replay. I'm like, nope, there's two right here. Right at some point in the game, even these guys at the very highest level get stuck and need to use that mechanic that's in place to get around it.
I think.
Thing.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's like I'm so jealous. I didn't even think of that, but can you imagine
I would say
walking yourself instantly for 50 mana? You fucking kidding me?
Yeah, no, it's if you are blocked and none of your production structures are working, in my personal opinion, it is always the best move to use it if you can.
Yeah.
And pro players use it.
I think a lot of people underestimate how much their play is telegraphing. There's subtle things that are telegraphing what they're actually doing. So people think they're getting blind countered when they're not. Like, you guys are not familiar with Boneth, but I was just looking at his stream the other day, and he was going over his replays, and like he's pointing out shit that he's seen I never would have been able to look for. Just so many subtle things, or just like the Overlord moved a little bit over here, which means he's worried about this and this and this because he's doing that. And it's like, whoa, there's so much subtlety, and it's hard for Danamy to catch. I mean, with all the different matchups. And all the different maps. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to the game that I think a lot of times players, when they get stuck, they're not appreciating there's all these other assets at their disposal that they could use to learn from just what they see or don't see,
Mm-hmm. Totally. That's definitely like, I can't tell you how many games I've saved myself or gotten the feeling and not saved myself where something moves funny. And I'm like, wait a minute. You can sometimes even feel it with like a scouting worker or something where they move in a certain way and you can tell they're trying to take your attention and you're like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Hope that answers your question, Black Faust. Sergeant Blano asks, are there other esports you like to watch or keep up with, like Melee, CSGO, etc.? Also, a question I asked prior, but would love to hear Tastosis' thoughts on any unit from Brood War you would love to bring to or replace in StarCraft 2. For me, I'm curious about having a science vessel instead of the Raven. So any other esports you guys like? And what do you think about bringing a different unit from StarCraft 1 to 2?
I like fighting games a lot. I mean, it's kind of hard to keep up with all the esports out there, but especially if there's a new game out, I'll usually check out the tournaments, see what's going on. I do not follow League really, even though it's quite big out here. It just doesn't really capture my interest. To add a unit in, I don't know, man. I mean, the Raven, by the way, it is basically a science vessel. It's just got some different spells, but serves a lot of the same purposes. I mean, I guess it'd be fun to have a Raver in there, but that's also what the Disruptor kind of is. So, not, you know what I mean? I'm not sure.
I think the Scourge is much more interesting than the Corruptor.
Yeah, actually, Scourge would be a lot more exciting.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that think that anything from Brood War should be in StarCraft 2, which is a very boring answer, but I feel like the weaknesses and strengths of the races are already there, and adding or subtracting a unit from the game would just turn it on its head.
Yeah.
So I'm actually I think StarCraft 2 is in a great place. I think Brood War is also great. We shouldn't really mess with them too much as far as units go. I'm down with a shake-up every now and then, like a big patch for StarCraft 2, but leave Brood War the way it is. And what was the first part of the question? Oh, I've accidentally closed the tab because I'm a noob.
The first part was, what other esports do you keep up with?
Oh, right. I think the most fun or the most amount of time I should say that I've put into watching an esport that isn't StarCraft is fighting games as well. I was really into Mortal Kombat 11 when it came out, and still kind of am. Like, I like Mortal Kombat a lot. And I watched
a really good game. It's really well made.
So good. And I watched a lot of the Mortal Kombat 11 tournaments at the beginning. But there was, I think that just like the tournaments are few and far between, and also at a time zone that wasn't great for me, so I didn't really keep up with them anymore. But I will always watch Evo at least for a few hours when it's on. And it's not really an esport, but I also really love speedrunning. So I will always watch GDQ when it's on.
Yeah, same. I always watch that. I love that.
Speedruns it's competitive, but at that event, it's more of a charity thing. They're not going to break world records there, but speedrunning is insanely fun for me to watch. Certain runs, anyway. Like super fun for me to watch. But yeah, I mean, I get very like I've tried to dip my toe into I'll watch Dota when the international's on, I'll watch CS:GO when there's a giant major on and everyone's tweeting about it. I'll click on the stream and have a look, but Eventually, I'll never retain for very long. I'll be like, and then click off of it. Like when Overwatch League first came out, I was like, oh, what's all this about? I want to see what it's like. As a curiosity, clicked on it and went, and then never really came back.
Mhm.
I'm one of those people that if I don't like episode 1 of a series, I won't watch episode 2. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Nate, any other esports that you like to follow?
I try to keep up on like the big stuff that's happening in a lot of different games. It's hard because there's like a million things always going on. But the last thing I watched was like the grand finals for the Madden champs were like last month. I tune into CS if it's on. Like if I'm just looking for a stream to put on, I'll usually try to pull up tournaments for either like Counter Strike or League.
Mhm.
I play those games very occasionally, but I do kind of like to keep my eyes on them.
Uh, I don't watch too much right now. I'm just kind of busy now that I do a lot of streaming as well. But I really liked fighting games for the most part, like you guys.
It's just so
Melee
easy to watch.
specifically, and Street Fighter 4, I actually watched a lot of. Really liked that game. Street Fighter 5 was kind of a disappointment, so I don't really keep up as much. Like I read the results, but I'm not as interested in watching it as number 4. All right, thank you for the question, Surgeon Blano. Some drunk Canadian asks, "What an epic gamer moment! What would you consider the high point so far and low point again so far of your casting career? Thank you for sacrificing your sleep, Tasteless, for doing this episode. Sending much love from the traditional territories of the Musqueam Nation, Vancouver." So, what is
Nice.
your high point and low point of your casting career you'd like to share?
I mean, high point, I guess. I mean, I feel like there's been a couple, but just some of the big stages we've been on, some of the cool games. I think it was really exciting to see Cyril win against a Korean for the first time. I actually felt like I was so distracted by what was actually happening. I don't think it was actually my best cast, if that makes sense. I think it was one of the moments where I felt like I was actually aware of how important this is and aware of my own. I wasn't in the moment as much. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like when you realize if you start to notice you're in the moment, then you're not going to be in the moment anymore. I had a
Yeah.
little bit of that, but I mean, that was definitely a high point, if you know what I'm saying. Some of the IM finals I've done, I've been really proud of. I mean, low point would definitely be when my StarCraft 1 show was canceled and I was homeless, staying with a mutual friend that Dan and I have. I was sleeping on his floor, but when StarCraft 2 came out and Dan and me got GSL, so everything's good now.
Mhm. For me, high point, I think, yeah, some of the big events like Heroes of the Dorm one was like especially kind of interesting. BlizzCon, always kind of a big deal. Um, for me personally, I was really into all the DeepMind stuff. So when I got to go to London to do that little show match with Roddy, that was like a really special moment for me. I really, really enjoyed that. As far as low point, um, I think 2013 was a little bit rough. Things were really, really shitty in 2013, 2014. That was like the fact that I didn't quit there helped me answer that other question that I'll still be here when I'm 60 because that
Mhm.
was things can't possibly get that bad again, probably, I would say. But that was a kind of just a rough time overall. There was like payments all went down and became shitty, and all the tournaments were like cannibalized into each other for this weird fucked up vision that someone had at the head office. So yeah, that was a tough year.
I'll start with the low point and end with the high point, just because I feel better feel better about it that way. But I think the low point for me was whenever I think about like an event that just everything went wrong for me was my second live event. I was like I am Singapore in 2013. At that particular event, I like had all these personal like outside of StarCraft problems, and they really negatively affected me in the cast, and I didn't do any prep. And I was hired for a gig, and I felt like I let everyone down. And I always bring that up as a black stain, and something I usually think about for motivation to never do that ever again. You know what I mean? Like I think of it as like I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit tired, and I feel like I shouldn't put any prep time to this tournament. I'm like, nope, you do it because you want to make sure you're never that guy again. You know. So that was I think a low point for me, and no one even reached out to me and said that I did a shit job. It's just that I personally hated what I did there so much that it just stuck with me the whole time. But the high point for me actually wasn't a grand final cast or anything like that. It was actually like the first I think the first night at my first ever BlizzCon in 2015, where I got hired as a commentator, I remember getting the like being in the lobby with all of you guys, like, you know, with you and Nick, and Moonglade was there, and, you know, as Roddy, Todd, etc., Day 9, and we're all hanging out and having a drink and just being like, wow, I've made it. And like just having that moment where I was just sitting there having a drink and going, oh, it's happened. I'm here. Like that was just this is the top of StarCraft casting. We did it. And I had my little, and I remember sitting there like by myself and looking at my little BlizzCon pin and just being like, shit, man, you know, I'm one of them now.
Fuck yeah, man.
It was one of those moments, you know, that wasn't a high point of a broadcast, but just like a high point in my casting career that I think about fondly. You know, it's a very high point.
Yeah, I'd have a very similar answer on that, Maynard. Like, yeah, BlizzCon, the club suite beers with Tasteless at 2 a.m, just hashing it out.
yeah.
Good times. Everybody getting together. Smith's ordering Taco Bell at 2 a.m. We're all partying. Oh man. And like the first, I was like, I can't believe that this is my life now, right? Like that, at least, you know, when I reached that point, it's just wild. Yeah, I guess worst for me. I mean, I felt, man, my Challenger casts were such shit. I could not deal with this 4 a.m. call time crap. I wasted so much of my time trying to argue with them about this stuff. Like, and then they got rid of our coffee machine, and I'm like, I have to go cast now for like 10 hours at 5 a.m, and like we don't have like a budget for like basically like almost anything, and nothing's open at 4 a.m. when you wake up to go to work. My cast sucked, man. I got so much heat. I got so much heat from people, and like I was like, man, I'd never seen so many negative comments about my cast, and I normally don't like look for it that much, but I got a lot of heat from Blizzard as well about that. Like they weren't sure if they wanted to have me do BlizzCon last year because they're like, well, your cast just hasn't been as great, and I'm like, you guys just hardly did shit for us for these stupidly long broadcasts, and it took a lot of took a lot of wind out of my sails for that, because it was also just like 2 days out of the week I had to completely break my entire like circadian rhythm that because during the entire other 5-6 days of the week it was like, yeah, I got to live my life normally now, right? But yeah, that would be my answer.
All right. Thank you for the question, some drunk Canadian. Shy Guy asks, hi, longtime fan of you all. What's the funniest gag or joke you guys remember saying during a cast together? Mine is from one of the early GSL where Tasteless seemingly out of nowhere made a joke about his high school teacher taking Viagra and Artosis loses it. Much love, guys.
Actually, the joke was that he talked about making ships in bottles, if I remember correctly. And my initial thought was, oh, he probably has erectile dysfunction. Like this guy probably. I just associated those two things so closely, even though I'm sure building boats in bottles is probably cool. But wasn't that like wasn't there like a dare or something? Like I had to use a word in a cast, and you had to use a word in a cast.
Yeah, we did that
We
at
did
MLG.
something like that a long time ago. Oh, was it MLG? Okay, maybe I'm mixing my stuff up here.
Yeah, no, we've definitely done some stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. Things don't come to mind. I know there's been times I've just completely broken. Wearing TY like who's wearing Protoss's
Protoss players' shoes.
Shoes. It still gets me. That was amazing. That was so fucking funny. Oh, where like just I can see it. It's like he gets into the group and he fucking makes these kids lay down. He puts his shoes. It's amazing.
We've had so many, man. I don't know if that any one stands out to me. I mean, I crack it up so much every GSL and everything, and we have a lot of fun moments. We have a lot of fun moments off camera, all of us together too. I think all of us off camera is even having more
1 year in
laughter
Academy where you two, Maynard and fucking Nick, were talking about like,
oh god, I was talking about this the other day.
And good night or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, no, we were talking about like misappropriation of like conventional anchors taking words from other languages and then trying to incorporate them. Like the fans are going baka over the game.
No, it's the Japanese are going baka
They're
over the
baka.
kimono.
Yeah.
Oh God.
We were going just to explain the thing, just like making like bad American announcer voice, but trying to say like the other language, like "Welcome to Katowice, Poland, the home
Yeah.
of esports." Just doing. Nick actually did. He did the "Kazamnida" and "Good night" or something like that. Or
And then it mutated. The side joke wouldn't make much sense, but then it turned into "Dumda." We changed from. I don't know if this is going to be. If people are just staring at the screen, watching us blankly, not getting why this is funny, but yeah, we've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And you did one like 10 seconds before we went live, and I was actually crying because they're like, all right, 10, 9, and I'm like crying, and my makeup was running, which as a man was embarrassing. But but yeah, I had my stage makeup on, and I was just I'm trying to pat my eyes and dry them while getting ready for the next series. Yeah,
and in many of those backstage scenarios, watching Nate do his fucking impression of David Kim. Oh my god!
Oh, Nate does a great impression of me as well, actually.
Oh my god, no!
And my brother, you do a bunch of great impressions, man. He's very spot on. Yeah, it's very impressive.
If only that talent was more useful.
You can't do an Australian. You can't do an Australian accent to save your life.
Oh my god! All right. Thank you for the question, Shy Guy. Metis asks to each of you: was your most memorable event from StarCraft 2 that you've attended or casted?
I mean,
the one that always pops in my mind is that European finals where Stefano won. That was like such a special event. I thought that was really great.
I mean, there's so many, man. I guess one that is sticking out in my mind right now is the one we did in Poland. The one the Krakow event that was really special.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it was really cool to see how passionate the Polish fans were. It was not as big as the Katowice one, but it was like I don't know, just a very nice, beautiful setup, and I don't know. I had a really good time casting it. Yeah. I don't know if that's a very good answer for that, but that's the one that comes to my mind.
For me, the thing that comes straight at me, like there's probably bigger events that I've done, but the one that came straight to me immediately is something that's just very memorable and meant a lot to me was my first ever GSL versus the world, where I went over with Roddy, and not only was it taking a chance on me as being someone I was basically standing in for Jeff, which was to me like a giant thing to do because he was like one of the old boys. And they were like, "Oh, come on board with Roddy, and you'll be there with Tasteless and Artosis." And I felt like, "Oh, one of these things is not like the other. One of those things is me." And then I went there, and it ended up being just a wonderful experience. It was cool to be in Korea for the first time. I'd never been to Korea before. It's my favorite region of StarCraft because that's what I spent my whole StarCraft career watching because that's the time zone for me as well. Australia to Korea is the same time zone basically, off by an hour. So it felt amazing to finally be in the studio that I've been watching the whole time. It was just a really fun event. And also the other big part of why that was amazing was the first time that we saw that it was the event that when it ended, I'm like, oh, Cyril's going to be the world champion, isn't he? Like I remember talking to Roddy going, oh, he's going to win everything, isn't he? He's going to be the first non-Korean champion. And Roddy's like, yes, I think so, man.
Well, if you ask him that was the best European player on any year, he'd probably say yes. So
that is true. But it was one of those special moments where it dawned on me that Cyril was going to be the world champ. Like way before BlizzCon started, this was back in August or whenever it was. I was like, oh, he's going to be the world champ. Like he's done it in Korea. He's won the big one against Stats, who's like the best Protoss in the world at the time. I was like, oh, that was a big moment.
All right.
And now it's Nate's turn.
I always give the same answer though. For me, the biggest thing was like I felt like everything in my whole entire life changed doing that first DreamHack Summer 2013. It was just wild. Mm-hmm. And we had some of the best matches. Like, I mean, it kind of sucks that like my favorite story about like that first big event, and it ends up the conversation always gets awkward because it was like I had that really sick match with like Life and Show. But for me, that was a really big moment for me. That match was insane. Like everything about that tournament final, Jaedong versus Stardust was like for just like doing a final at my first big event like that is. I don't know, like a lot of crazy, awesome things have happened since then, but there's still nothing I don't think will ever supplant that because it's always the first thing that comes to mind. So it must be the biggest for me.
Great. All right. Thank you for the question. Fear Dragon asks, do you think it's possible for another caster or duo of casters to become the #1 StarCraft casters anymore? Asking for a friend. Yeah, but I'm not planning on casting with anyone else, so it'll remain me and Nick.
Ditto.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Moving on. Maynard and Nate, you're not allowed to answer that one. Okay. Saft Scissor, thanks, Fear Dragon, for the question, buddy. He says, thanks, Terran wine size PC liquid cooling station. All right. Saft Scissors asks, what is thing you wish you didn't have to do as a caster that you have been required to do? Is there anything that you wish production would incorporate into the cast that isn't common or hasn't been done before? What's your most memorable casting moment?
For me, I mean, like, usually the best production I work with are the ones that leave me alone. I've found that there's more problems when I have someone that's coming over there that's like trying to tell me like when I should be funny or can you do this or like say I'm like, you don't have to like just leave me alone. Yeah, GSL, for instance, we're left alone. You know, we kind of talk about what we want to talk about and highlight what we think is important because they trust us with that. I do think it can be a situation where you have too many cooks in the kitchen, especially people who are new to this kind of stuff, where they think, oh, I got to be your boss or I got to tell you to do this or I got to remind you to say this. And it's just, I find that all to be really distracting and not helpful.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Anything for you guys come up?
Oh man, I'm just gonna give the easy throwback because man, Jeff and I we waged war over this. The introduce the players, you didn't introduce them. It's game 2. It's the game is going, and we're both like still on a tangent that was during the boot up into the second game. Like we were talking about like our favorite convertible or some shit.
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
The game is starting. Please introduce the players. We have the graphics on standby. You cannot skip this. And I'm like, fucking god, it's game 2. It's not even like round of 16. It's like day 1 of DreamHack. Like, holy shit, man. Nobody needs to know that Queenie and White Raw's names again in game 2. We're gonna say them a million times anyway. Like,
but not only that, but like they can also like they're people like that are so caught up in like you gotta say it and then I'm gonna hit the button and then this thing's gonna go over here and it's like fucking mousetrap, like everything's gonna be activated. Where I'm like, you could just put the graphic up, man.
Yeah, the same thing happens when you're hosting. Yeah, and like,
I didn't forget about the fucking game. Yeah, no, I didn't forget. I'm not confused. I'm not like talking to Dan. I go, look at, oh my god, there's a StarCraft game going on over here. I know. You can throw the thing up, like you trusted me to go up on stage and talk. We're gonna have to go with the flow a little bit here, Yeah, I know what you're talking about with that for sure.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, Saft Scissors. Question. Sauce King asks, Tasteless, tell me a story about a time Artosis really pissed you off. Artosis, tell me a short story about a time Tasteless really pissed you off. Love all you nerds.
This is like a moment we're gonna be like, well, one time I really wanted to fucking kill Dan. Was this and this and this? You're like, well, one time I really fucking hated Tasteless.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think we really actually butt heads. We definitely have gotten in some arguments when we're traveling together, but we've had to work in close quarters and be on stage together. And but overall, I don't think we could do this if we wouldn't pretty much have a good rapport.
One time, actually, I started I started a show about StarCraft, and I did it for like over 2 years, and I was
oh shit.
Yes.
All right.
That is a good one. That is a good one.
Thanks, Sauce King. All right. Lord Philium asks, if Nate and Nick's beards and Maynard's dreads were Brood War or StarCraft 2 units, which would they be? Not to leave out Artosis, describe fatherhood with a Brood War or StarCraft 2 unit. Okay, so fatherhood with a Brood War unit.
It'd be a black Archon if all of our beards and dreads came together. It was the first black Archon.
Yeah. Oh god.
And it'd be like one of those Archons, like tendrils coming out of the back of it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it, man. That's the answer. We're a brand new unit.
There we go.
Exactly.
All right.
It's a massive unit that swallows small ones. Easy.
That's right. With mind control and maelstrom.
Thank you for the question, Lord Philium. Alessandro asks, Rifkin, has the worst story yet of casting a tournament gone wrong through Wardy's fire in the casting room? is a good one, and I'll never forget the 6-hour technical delay on air at BlizzCon. What's your worst story? No names necessary. What's a terrible story of a casting event gone wrong?
Well, I'm already done because that was me and Sean stuck up there at BlizzCon. That was like that was.
I
there's
mean,
nothing worse
I
than
can
that.
give you a couple examples. I mean, when we were working with TV people doing the ESPN event, they didn't have the it's called a rundown for a show, which is like, okay, there's like a block here. This is the intro, a block here. This is where you're on camera. The next, so we didn't even get that until like a few hours before we went live the first time. I mean, they were so disorganized. So I mean, we're about to go on live fucking cable TV. Okay, like first esport on cable TV, and like this crew was so disorganized that
They
I
were
mean,
so
I
sure
thought
they were doing it the right way. They kept having us fucking do these parts where they're like, "Yeah, now say this part," and it's like, guys, can you just tell us what order any of this is in? And eventually, who was there helping ran it through with all of us. Thank God he was fucking there.
well, not only that, but with that same crew, they would make us practice the intro to the show for hours. The second time we did it, where I'm like, hey man, I actually have to cast all day, all these games. Are we really going to practice your part that's 15 minutes over and over and over and over again? You know, and it was terrible. Yeah, it was very scary because we were about to go on live TV. And you know, it's going to be a different audience and everything. I think we got through it. I thought we did a good job, but that was just levels of alarm. That was, it's hard to explain now, but I mean, at the time it was very scary. We got through it though. It went fine too.
Yeah. And sometimes there's sound issues at a lot of events too, which is.
I have had my ears blown up a few times. Yeah.
I've definitely had events where I keep telling them there's a sound problem and nobody's really taking me seriously because they don't understand that once you put your headset on and you're in this loud arena, if you can't hear your co-host or something like that, it can be very, very bad.
Yeah. I've had a big event where my co-caster, like I was casting with In Control, and his mic straight up died in the middle of a cast, and it was a semi-final of something pretty big. So I was just like, oh, okay, guess I'm solo casting here. So that's happened before, but yeah, it's just an audio issue. Add it to the pile.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for the question, Alessander. Poop Feast 420 asks, thanks to all 4 of you for what you do. Castles, for auditory StarCraft history, please read this aloud. Tosis, my son, say the Tasteless. You are such a large pylon. Why aren't you in Six City? But the Tosis don't respond. He goes home to boot up Cardstone.
Can we get it put up on screen so I can read it though?
Puts on his gamer jacket. His top deck. Alone in his heart, Tasteless commits Sudoku at the Starbucks in San Bernardino without cappuccino, no cappuccino.
Yeah, it's up now. Go ahead.
Hold on a second. Wait, where is it? Tosis, my son, say the Tasteless. You are such a large pylon. Why aren't you in Six City? But the Tosis don't respond. He goes home to boot up some Cardstone, puts on his gamer jacket, and says, well met, to his top deck. Alone in his heart, Tasteless commits Sudoku at a Starbucks and San Bernardino with Al Pacino, no cappuccino.
Oh my God, it finally happened.
Finn.
Wow.
All right. Thanks.
Historical moment for StarCraft.
You're always there for us. All right. Trelak asks, in 1 month's time, you're going to undergo a body swap with Tasteless. The swap will last 1 week. If anybody finds out, you'll be devoured by sentient food. How do you spend your month preparing Tasteless to pass off as you? And how do you spend your week living your best Tasteless life? Well, my best Tasteless life is just like having a little vacation from my regular life where I have 4 children. And to prepare him for that, Jesus, I'll teach him how to change a diaper, I guess, and what foods children eat.
Yeah, this is one of these moments we have to swap bodies and it becomes something where we understand each other's lives so much better somehow. Like, I don't know. How would I prep Artosis to be me? I don't know. I feel like normally I have something funny to add here, and right now I don't have anything really great.
I think what would
Getting a
happen
little gas.
is I would basically be a better you than you. This would be such a vacation for my life that everyone would be like, Nick, man, you're tearing so much better. You're looking so happy.
Then you get eaten by sentient food, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. I couldn't tell anyone. Shit.
I would just.
I got nothing. I'm sorry. I got
I
don't
got
know. I don't know.
nothing. I got nothing.
I would show up to GSL every day and just have a great time and sit in my apartment when I'm at home waiting for my next GSL broadcast, and that's all I would do. And then I would tell Nick, and I'll be telling Nick, don't drive my car, walk my dog every day, and don't touch my wife. See you in a week.
Excellent. I like it.
There you go.
All right. Thank you for the question. Alessandro asks, Tasteless is famed for studying multiple subjects in college. If Tasteless were winner, I'll buy you effing dinner tournament. What sentient food would he order? Could Tasteless please answer last?
Wait, what was the question? What sentient food?
Yes. So this is an on-running thing where people have always asked terrible questions about sentient food. So if the food was alive.
This is this show's version of to feed the animals or kill the animals. Is that?
Yes.
Great.
That is
all right.
Exactly it.
Yes.
A sentient beer. There you go.
Is it just me answering, or is Nate or Mater going to answer?
I don't know, like a chicken tender, a living one, I guess. I think that's the answer I'm supposed to give. That's a very Nathanius answer, right?
Yes.
I've got nothing. I'm trying to think of something, and I literally have nothing.
I got an answer here.
I'm blue screening.
I actually have been eating pizza while doing this, so it'd be a sentient pizza.
You didn't even share it?
Tapatio hot sauce.
Oh my!
Right.
I'm jealous.
There we have it. Thank you for the question. Hydro33 asks, StarCraft seems to have the most down-to-earth and transparent personalities compared to other sanitized esports scenes. Do you agree, and why do you think that is? Is it just due to an older demographic? Cheers. Why are we so transparent and down-to-earth, guys?
Well, I think it helps a lot that you guys paved a road, though, right? Like, I mean, anybody that was going to get into it ended up looking at you for inspiration. And I think one of the best things was that, like, if you're watching GSL, is just really good. Like, the camaraderie seemed to be really emphasized, and not just making it about like the overly try-hardy breakdown stuff. But I'd also probably say definitely the age of the game. I think there's a lot more respect just naturally, because when you play StarCraft or when you talk about competitive StarCraft, you're talking about like a tradition that's over 20 years old now, right? So there's I don't know, anybody who's still a part of it has probably been a part of it for a while now.
I think it's older. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. Sorry.
I was going to say no one's in StarCraft at this point to get rich or be famous, unlike other esports.
Yeah.
So people act a certain way in other esports because they're like, oh, I want to be the next big thing in Valorant. I love Valorant. I'm all about Valorant. And it's like, okay, that's cool, but like, you're probably going to put on a certain thing. Whereas everyone left over in StarCraft at this point is like, well, we clearly like this shit, and we can just be ourselves.
I think actually it's even more so that there's not as much pressure to appease certain directors or people that think the show has to look a certain way. Sometimes you'll have a company that really wants a certain look or polished feel, and so you can end up with stuff that seems pretty dorky or inauthentic. Where especially for GSL, I mean, the people we've worked with at that company have been amazing to us. They've really let us do our own thing and kind of make the show the way that we see fit. I mean, I've been really surprised occasionally when Dan and me go over, they'll hire both of us to go somewhere and do an event, and then you suddenly have 10 people trying to help you, but it's not actually help. It's just making it harder for us to do what we want to do. And so if we've had to deal with that, I'm sure other people have had to deal with that in other games where maybe the stakes are different and much more. So that's probably a factor as well.
Yeah, I think it's a bit for me was that I like Nate obviously grew up at StarCraft 2, watching you guys and Jeff and all the original OGs from Brood War, just being so chill and relaxed. And then when I actually met you guys in person, I'm like, oh, I don't know what to expect. And then you're just like, oh, they're just really friendly guys, and it's really easy to make friends with them, and they're very like open to you telling them your story. And you find you just it became very easy to become friends with everyone in StarCraft 2, and I think that everyone in StarCraft 2 that commentator is friends, and we all get along with each other, and we'd all happily work with each other at any point. And I think that shows in our broadcast as well, is that we're just friendly. We're friends. We would all hang out with each other at any point. And if I think in our game there is no room for that, package personality fake guy. I don't think that person is going to
Yes.
get anywhere in our game. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Very
Yep.
hard to agree. Very hard to agree there. Especially like when we got into it, right? Like when you show up to do events and you're new and you're working with like guys like Jeff and Kevin and Todd, like you can't none of that fake shit wouldn't fly anyway, right? It would have been beaten
they'd
out of
shoot
you
it
a
down.
long time ago, or you'd be kicked out.
Yeah.
Good answers. All right, 2 more questions and we are done. William Wallace asks, who are your favorite players to cast and why? Is it their play styles, builds, or just pure brilliance? Thanks for being awesome, guys.
SOS. I always love casting SOS games. Yeah. I mean, I just get excited. I always want to see what he's going to do. I'm always kind of rooting for him, but yeah, I think just the way that he approaches it is so cool.
For me, maybe Rogue or TY. I just think they're really, really smart, and I feel like I can see the future of the game by watching what they're trying to do. I really enjoy them.
To me, it's like a mixture of like more so like TY is my answer, but a very, very close tied second is like Cyril and Reyna. And that like TY is my number one because he plays my race. And that might be the only difference, but also he's just incredibly intelligent. He's never seems to do the same thing over and over again. He's always got something else, and he's very, very, very good at preparing for a match. Clearly, from this last season of GSL, he's incredibly good at that, which is also something I didn't even realize. Honestly, like I knew TY was good, but was he like Maru level of being able to prep good? Apparently, yes. But the Cyril and Reyna things, to go into that, is just that these guys are like the future of the game. And I feel like if people are playing, like if the average skill level of the game keeps getting higher and higher, I feel like those guys are the future. And they are, like, I'm just always in awe of watching them play when they are playing their best. Like, there's been some games from Cyril and Reyna recently that have been like maybe a little bit lackluster because they've just been like an all-in that was sort of maybe it's a best of 5 and it's a throwaway game and they're just going for it, maybe trying to get a quick and easy win, which happens sometimes. That's just StarCraft. But when they're really kicking in and they're playing that full macro style and they're really in their element, they are just fucking awe-inspiring to watch as a fan of StarCraft. If you just understand enough about StarCraft to understand the game, it's awe-inspiring, man. To watch either of those three, they're incredible.
Well said.
Yeah, I would say the easy answer, TY. I mean, he's a more mechanically gifted Gumiho, and I like watching players who make me think with what they do. And whenever I watch TY, I feel like I'm getting, one of those lines starting to form in my brain every time I try to watch him and understand what he's doing because he's just so
Crease
smart.
in the brain. That's right.
Oh, good answers. All right, last question from GGE Mini 19 himself. If you could all be as learned as Tasteless, which of the multiple subjects of the world would you choose to be an expert in, either for logistical purposes or pure enjoyment? As learned as Tasteless, guys. It's quite learned.
Maritime law. I mean, where do we go?
Yeah. There's so many subjects that you can study in
There's
college.
so many subjects you could study.
All of them.
Yeah.
Probably mammals.
Artosis, a lot of people don't know this, but he had an interest in being a glaciologist. It was either StarCraft or glaciers.
Yeah. I like that shit. So,
I feel like if I had to pick a subject, it would probably be something like I feel like I could get really into being like a high level whiskey distiller, like someone that could actually produce and create blends of whiskey or single malts and that sort of thing.
cool.
I think I'd get really into that if I had like access to a distillery and everything above board, nothing in the bathtub, like something real. I think I'd get really into the science behind that. Like, so yeah, I think that's something that just came to me now.
Cool.
Plan C, there it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess if I had to pick something, probably I don't. It's not a type of thing that I work on. I don't know how far away it is. I mean, I guess it's pretty far, but like engine and like mechanical, like hands-on engineering type stuff, like electrical engineering. I don't know if I could be like just an expert on that, like how wiring and buildings and stuff and vehicles and everything, right? Yeah, like it can be such a broad thing that has so many different applications and has such an impact on like daily life stuff. I find that type of stuff very interesting.
Great. All right. That does it for the Patreon questions. And I got to say, Tasteless, I guess people really wanted to ask you some shit because that was by far the longest Patreon questions that we've ever had. That was
goddamn.
You don't
That
say.
was
We did it.
that was crazy. We were doing it for like an hour and a half. Like that's insane. Normally it's like 35 minutes or something. So wow. Okay. Big shout outs to our patrons. Thank you so much, everyone, for supporting the show. And a big shout out, of course, to our May 2020 God tier $1,000 Patreon supporter in Rep Exodus, because without him, we would not have had this Tasteless episode. He made us reach all our goals. That's awesome. And of course, our June $100 tier supporters, Astrafin, Jerry Wang, Manard, Rip Exodus still supporting us, Shane and VDEC. So yeah, that was great, guys. We're gonna go ahead and say goodbye. Why don't you tell people like where they can find you, what they should be following, where they should be looking for you. Tasteless, we'll start with you. What do you want people to check out?
First of all, sorry the show match is late. We're going to start it right after this. I'm going to turn my stream on. So it'll be against Cats for the Matcherino. Twitch TV is my Tasteless, or my Tasteless TV is my Twitch channel. Sorry, and I don't know. Check out the Tasteless podcast. We're going to be airing episodes on Twitch soon. We're working with the studio to get video stuff produced. There's a Patreon for that as well. I find it really hard to raise any more money. I think you guys have the same thing on the Pylon show. It's hard to get the next bump unless it's incentivized, but we will have an episode with Artosis on the Tasteless podcast once we get to our mark there. I don't know. This was fun. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Nate, how about you? Where should people check you out?
I'm still just streaming. I've got finally I live in a place that I like and I have really good internet. So I've started playing on the Europe and Korean ladder again. I've got like 140 ping. It's like amazing. I have fiber.
Nice.
So I'm just kind of getting like a little bit, trying to set some goals for making certain like rank placements, I guess. But I'm just on Twitch, Nathanius, Twitter, Nathanius. You want to see pictures of a golden retriever puppy eating my socks? You can find those there as well.
All right, Maynard, how about you?
Maynard SC2 on Twitter and Twitch TV Maynard. I've had a couple days off this week from streaming because I had an abrasion on the back of my throat. So I cut from something and it's been swollen. I haven't been able to speak for long periods of time. Today's like the first day I've actually been able to talk for a while without like being in pain and needing a lozenge or something like that. So I had a bit of a light week on streams, but next week all guns blazing, back into the casting, back into streaming the tournaments and all that sort of business, with a little bit of Doom Eternal sprinkled in there as well for some run practice.
Great. All right. And as for me, guys, thank you everyone for tuning in today. Thanks for all the gifted subs. I saw we got a good amount there today. Appreciate you all. That's the biggest way to support me, is just checking out my Twitch channel. I've been doing a ton of streaming, so thank you for following and subscribing. And a big thanks to our Pylon Show team, Cobra on production, Alleluia TV doing the timestamps, Alessander for the show notes, our clever web devs and wonderful artists, and everyone else who put in the time each week to bring you this episode and all the others. It's certainly not just me. My God, I would be so talented if I could do shit like this and still know anything about StarCraft. Yeah, shout out to Matcherino, and that they're a big deal within the scene. They've been powering the esports business model and everything. Yeah, for instance, you're having a show match in a minute, right, Tasteless? Guys, go check out the Matcherino. You can support there, and
if any of you guys want to cast it, by the way, you can. We're just going to be hopping on BattleNet. It's
I have to go to Costco, but I'll take a look at the replay.
I understand. You have a family to feed, but anything, or if anybody wants to cast it or whatever, we can have people hop in. So, but yeah, we're raising stuff on Matcherino. Matcherino has been great.
Yeah, awesome. And you can check out our Matcherino as well at the Pylon Show, and that's iced tea for the code. And if you enjoyed the show, please like it on YouTube and everything. Leave a podcast review. Put a star rating, hopefully 5. If you put 1, fuck you. Don't watch my show. And yeah, it really makes a difference, guys. So that's about it. We're going to go ahead and host and raid Tasteless vs. Cats. So stay tuned. We're going to send you right over to them. Thanks, everyone, for coming in, and we'll see you next week.
Shout out to the Pylon Show, the greatest show on the internet.